Hey guys, how's it going? This is Joey here. This week we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to review the books from May 2nd and May 9th here, and hopefully this will work out a little bit better because I did skip a week, but we're going to move forward with these 2 weeks here in one podcast. And what we're going to do is, instead of doing the Marvel books this week, we're just going to do DC books this week because there's quite a few DC books and quite a few Marvel books that I wanted to do. And this week I'm not going to be able to edit all the books all into one, and we'll just kind of start fresh here from this point and move forward because I did get a little busy with work and family time. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to record this for you guys, and we're going to get this going, and we're going to do DC books from week May 2nd and May 9th, and let's get it going here.
Get ready for another episode of MCDC Comics Podcast. Oh yeah.
Are you ready for some pop culture and comic? Yeah!
Alright, welcome to another episode of MCDC Podcast with your host Joey Galvez. This week we've actually got quite a bit of books. This week was actually pretty good for the books here. So on the DC side, we've got DC Nation number 0. This one, everybody, was the most anticipated book of the year, of the summer, I guess you want to say. And then we've got Batman 46. We've also got Action Comics Special number 1, and I'm going to do Nightwing number 44. This was a new recommendation. Looks like we've got new people on the book, so I wanted to read this one and kind of review it. I have not been keeping up on this book, so I'm going to be going into that one cold, and I'll give you guys my review on that one. We're also going to be reviewing Detective Comics 980, and we're going to do Hal Jordan and Green Lantern Corps. And also we've got Justice League No Justice number 1, and we're going to do Flash number 46. So let's go ahead and stay tuned and get into these books. And again, like I said, we're going to be doing just the DC books this week. We're going to do, this is going to be week 8 and 9 of my reviews put together in one podcast. And hopefully this will help me to catch up on my recording. And we'll move on to the next books next week coming up. So we're going to go ahead and crack these open. And we're going to crack it open with DC Nation first. And then we'll move on to the next few books here. So let's go ahead and crack it open. Alright guys, let's go ahead and open up DC Nation 0. So we've actually got 3 different stories here. And that's actually kind of pretty cool. We've got Batman in Your Big Day, Superman in Office Space, Justice League and No Justice Prelude. So we've got Tom King and Clayman as the artist on Batman, and we've got Brian Michael Bendis and Jose Luis Garcia Lopez on Superman Office Space. And then we've got Scott Snyder, James Tynion, and Joshua Williamson in the No Justice Prelude. So we've got these 3 different stories here, and I'm going to tell you right now, I've been talking to some other guys on another podcast here, and that they gave their review on this book, and I'm sure that they didn't like this book that much, but I'm completely different. I'm on the other side of it. I liked a couple of the stories here. The story that I liked quite a bit, they did not like. And but that's the beauty of podcasting, and that's the beauty of having your own opinion about these books. All right, it's all your opinion. I'm here to intrigue the idea of you guys wanting to read this or purchasing or plant that seed so that if you guys want to read these on your own, pick it up, go to your local comic shop, go to Comixology or however you download your books, get on there, get it yourself if this intrigues you and wants you to and makes you want to pick these books up. So let's jump into it here. We got actually the first page was actually pretty cool, and I thought it was actually really cool myself. We open up the book with Your Big Day, and we got Joker, and it looks like he's looking through a mail slot. And just a quick synopsis about this whole story here is we got Joker, and he wants to be invited to Batman and Catwoman's wedding, right? So this is the big thing that everybody wants. They want to be invited to the wedding. Let's get into this book here. So it looks like we got Joker, and he broke into somebody's home. So it's Joker, and he is pretty creepy, right? And he tells creepy jokes, and he just makes people all around uncomfortable. So that's what we see here on this first page. He tells a creepy joke. He went into this guy's home and holding this guy hostage at gunpoint. And this guy, I'm sure, it's Joker. Well, I was sat here and kind of put myself into this. And if Joker was in my home waiting for my mail to see if I was going to be invited to Batman and Catwoman's party, or wedding, I'd be pretty freaked out, and for him to just be throwing jokes out there, and I'd feel like I was obligated to kind of break the tension there. So we see him telling creepy jokes, and he explains to the guy that he's waiting for the mail so that he can come, and this guy's just freaked out. He thinks that he's gonna kill him, and he explains to him, I have a wife, I have a daughter, and she's gonna come home. I don't want her to, I don't want you to kill her. If anything, kill me, kind of thing. So this is what he's going through. We flip the page, and we see a couple different panels here where, Joker's looking through the slot, waiting for the mail, getting frustrated, and he explains to Joker that he's got a daughter. Joker's like, oh, that's wonderful. I love kids. And he tells another creepy joke about how he doesn't like, though not to eat small bones, he can choke and this kind of thing. He tells this guy, Roger, not to worry, because he kills people when he's upset, and he doesn't want to upset Joker. And then we flip the page again, and now it's a little bit later. We see that they're just staring at the mail slot in the door. And he's like, well, what are you waiting for? And he's like, it's for a wedding. I'm waiting for a letter for a wedding. He's like, oh, okay. Well, what makes you think that I'm going to be invited? He's like, it's Batman. Batman's getting married, Joker says. And he's like, obviously, he'd want to share his big day with me. And this Roger guy asks the Joker, is there a reason why the Batman would send something here? And he's like, today. So that's kind of the feeling that we get here. This guy is wondering, why would Batman send an invitation to his home on that specific day? And Joker says he has to send it somewhere and sometime, and this is somewhere and sometime. So right here is where I started thinking, okay, this guy is not going to get out of this alive, because Joker's just randomly running into somebody's home. He's just going in there cold, and he's like waiting for mail. I'm sure this is just a creepy, sadistic Joker. This is who he is, right? So we now see that Roger kind of gets the upper hand and grabs a gun from Joker, and he pulls the trigger right in his face, and it's a joke gun, and a little flag comes out and it says bang. And I'm sure this pisses off Joker, right? He says, now the guy's like, oh man, now I'm gonna die. He's like, what? No, Roger, no, no, yeah, absolutely not, no, well, maybe. And he's like, my daughter, he's like, hey Roger, did you hear the one about the letter that didn't have a stamp? And he's like, no, you wouldn't get it. So now we see him pleading to Joker, don't kill my daughter. She has, he kind of explains to her what's going on, how she looks, and that he, just kind of pleading with him and hoping that he wouldn't kill her. And he's like, kill me, kind of thing. And he's like, Roger, and he's, I'm not going to do it. And then, so he's like, no, do it now, kill me. And Roger freaks out, and he's like, Batman's not getting married. And if he was, why would he be inviting you? And he has, he's not sending the invitation here to a random house on a random day. And Joker stops and he's like, well, I'll be honest with you. I've never learned the whole alphabet. I don't know why. And he's just kind of going back and forth and just freaking this guy out. Now the mail comes in and they're sitting there. Joker does not jump up immediately. And Joker's like, well, we gotta look, right? We have to. Let's do it. And then it's this creepy banter going back and forth. Now they grab the letter, and he grabs it and he's like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm now that I'm officially invited. So the guy Roger's sitting in the chair and he's like, so what's that? Is that what you came for? You're not upset? And Joker's like, upset? I'm going to the wedding of the year. It'll be me, the bride, and the groom, all of us happy. I'm so happy. And then he gets his gun and he shoots him in the face. And he says, when I'm happy, I kill people. And you see that the letter is actually not a wedding invitation. It's a letter from his daughter's school from about, attendance. And this is where we see it says to be continued in Batman number 48 on sale in June. So this whole story was actually, it wasn't the most horrible writing from Tom King, in my opinion. There was a couple of places where they just kind of stretched it out a little bit. Even in this short story, he kind of stretched it out a little too long, and I think he could have written it just a little bit better. But I'm not a professional writer, right? I've never went to school for it, but I'm just a fan, and I read this, and this is from a perspective of a fan. So it was a little clunky in just a couple of different panels here, but for the most part, it was not horrible like some of the other books are. But this did give me that feeling of how creepy Joker is, and how he, he's just randomly just wanting to kill somebody because he's just playing a game, and just to do Joker stuff. This is what he's doing, So this is really creepy, and I think they did a good job in making sure that they showed us how creepy Joker is and gave us just a little bit of a taste of what's to come on that big day when Batman and Catwoman get married. The artwork was actually pretty good. I did like the way the Joker looked. He looked pretty creepy, and he was on point. I loved the art. I'm going to just tell you right now. So on that story alone, I'm going to give it a high rating. I'm not going to give it too high because, there were some areas, and it is Tom King, and sometimes I really don't like Tom King's writing. So I'm probably going to give it let's say 7. I'll give it a 7 on that one. So we're going to move on to the Superman story. So the Superman story we open up with Superman flying into the Daily Planet, and we hear Perry White is talking to he's gathered around all of his employees, and they're all talking about what's going on, and he's like, he says no more editorial headlines or commentaries or letters to the editor about being afraid of Superman. So he wants something that he can actually print, and he wants something that everybody has hard evidence on. So, and if it has to do with Superman, he wants evidence. He wants what's actually going on. He doesn't want these pieces where people are just saying that they're afraid of him and they don't know, kind of a thing. He does sit here and say that Superman has done nothing to arouse suspicion and has done everything to try to make this overall dump of a planet safer, better place than it was the day before. He says he's not Batman. So, there's a comparison there that, Batman kind of instills fear in people, and he's not this kind of backwards way kind of guy. Superman generally helps people, and he's there for the better of the city. He said, I'm done selling fear to keep the lights on, and then Clark Kent comes in. So Superman changed into Clark Kent, and he says, you're back, tell me something, give me something that I can print. He tells them about a story that he did. He said he infiltrated, and this actually, the writing here in this moment kind of got me a little bit, because, it's kind of a redundant moment here, I guess. So let me kind of read this here a little bit for you. He says that, He says, I was actually on assignment. I infiltrated a stronghold in Costa Rica, and it was ex-U.S. Army government employees were all attempting to sell old LexCorp tech. Perry White really likes the sound of the story. He says, okay, but do you have proof? Printable proof that every news organization in the world will be quoting us from. Well, Clark Kent says, well, as I said, I had all but infiltrated the situation as a potential buyer. In the panel before this, he literally told them that he infiltrated a stronghold. And now he's saying, I all but infiltrated. So which is it? Did he infiltrate it or did he not infiltrate this thing? He went to go check this out in Costa Rica, and everybody is dressed in Lex Luthor's suits, kind of like they were trying to create an army or looks, I'm not sure, but you got to have full of people in Lex Luthor's suits. And so Superman is trying to take them over. They're shooting guns at him, and it's obviously not hurting him. And he's got them, and he subdues them. Looks like he's got some military there backing him up, or something. We got guys in green suits back there. Looks like almost like similar to army suits, backing Superman up. And he, now we get a little panel here off to the side, and he says that it happened very fast, and it was actually a blur, and but after Superman left, with a wink, of course, the guilty parties all confessed to me. How convenient, right? They all confessed to Clark Kent, and it looks like obviously they confessed to Superman. We move on, and Mr. White says, "Okay, let's. This is great. Everybody, let's give you Lois's old corner office." And Clark Kent says, Mr. White, all due respect, I don't want it though. And he says, yes, you do. Everybody wants it. He says, no, thank you. So we get a little bit of an idea that Lois Lane is gone. She's no longer with the Daily Planet, but Clark Kent stayed. So we don't know. We don't know what's going on with this situation. I'm sure we're gonna get this story in the Superman books, and then you see a couple different people say, "Oh, I want it." Looks like Olsen wants the corner off. He says, "No, I'm not gonna give it to you." And then they kind of move on to the next one. You see that there's a picture of Lois Lane there in the Daily Planet and stuff. So we move on. Perry White kind of keeps going off, get on your good reporting and things like that. And then he introduces a new employee here. So she came from Star City, and he was really, really impressed with one of her pieces that she did, and he said that there's nothing in there that I found that I had to edit. This is great. Now he's got this person on his team, and he looks like he's introducing her to everybody. He introduces her to Clark Kent, and Clark Kent says, thank you, welcome for to the team. Great to I really loved your piece. And Mr. White here interrupts them and calls Kent to his office. Then you flip the page and you go into his office. And then he confronts him and says, this story is crap here. This is not your best work here. And I'm sure he just wanted to keep up appearances in front of everybody and make everybody feel like, they still have one great reporter there. And, so he didn't want to kind of, bust him in front of everybody. So he tells him, I need you to do better. Give me something better here. And you see Clark Kent kind of storming out of the office, kind of upset, and everybody kind of watching on. So we flip a couple pages. We see Superman fly out of there, and I guess Clark Kent went up to the roof to kind of get some air after he got so upset. And this Miss Good here, she goes up to the roof, follows him, and she says, "Hey, everybody says that you come up here to, and she kind of stutters a little bit, and she doesn't see anybody, but she sees Superman flying off. So I don't know what that means. And so I don't know what's going on. And then you see, we flip the page and we see Miss Good. She's talking to somebody, and this mystery person asks her, "So, Miss Good, first impressions of your new employer?" She says, "Okay, well, let me tell you. The legendary Clark Kent is a mess. Lois Lane is MIA and nobody knows where. No one is talking. It is demented. And he says, and Perry White. And she says, I swear he commutes to work from 1945. This mystery person says, do they know what you can do? She says, of course not. Then we're good, Miss Good. And she says, tell the man Wednesday. And the gentleman says, what happens Wednesday? And she says, by Wednesday, I will own the place. And then it says, to be continued in the Man of Steel #1 on sale May 30th. So we'll find out what happens here, who this mystery person is on May 30th, and what Miss Good's real intentions are here. So we move on to the next story here, and it is a prelude to No Justice. So we open up the page, and Batman is on his knees, and it looks like we've got a handful of Brainiac soldiers here. And it says that they are on the home world of Brainiac, Kolu, at the edge of the known universe. And Batman's on his knees, and they're telling him that he committed universal crimes against the universal law. And they're going to ask him one more time before they pull the trigger, where is the Justice League? And he, with a brooding smirk, says, which one? And then we are introduced to the many different teams of Justice League. And so we got Justice League Team Entropy here, and I guess as reading on into the story, they say that their many different teams are they're teams of superheroes and supervillains. You got Lobo, Deathstroke, Lex Luthor, Beast Boy, and Batman on this team, and they're in one area fighting all one piece of a bigger puzzle, right? And then we've got let's see what Superman's team is called. We got Team Mystery, and we've got Superman, we got Martian Manhunter, Starfire, and we've got Sinestro and Starro here, and they're all on Team Mystery. Team Wonder, which is Wonder Woman, Dr. Fate, Raven, Etrigan, and Zatanna. And then we move on and we see the Team Wisdom, which is Cyborg, Robin, son of Batman, Atom, and the Flash, and Harley Quinn. And they are all fighting together on these different teams as one huge team. That actually, they are all trying to stop. We see that they are fighting the Titans, or trying to stop the Titans from coming and taking over Brainiac's home world. And then because they say if we don't stop them here, Earth is next. So Earth is next on the list to appetize these Titans, right? Then we're back on Earth, and we see Green Arrow and Supergirl, and they're kind of just surveying the area down there and figuring out, okay, we got to make sure that everything's good here. They're policing the area, and you see Supergirl, she kind of flies out to the upper atmosphere, and she says, oh no, they are here. And we see that the Titans are here, and there's about 4 of them here, and they are already there for Earth, and it's just her and Green Arrow, and that's where we see that they are to be continued here. And it says, this is a prelude to No Justice, and we got No Justice coming out next week here, #1, and that one's actually pretty good. I will be reviewing that one on the next show here, so hopefully you guys will stay tuned and listen to that one. So this story actually kind of intrigued me as well. I did like the artwork on both of these stories. They were really good. I do like the writing, and this whole book overall was actually really good. I'm a different person. I have a different opinion, and when I read these, I just tell you what I like, and if I like it, then I like it. It has nothing to do with anybody else's, opinion, or I form my own opinion on these ones. So on the Superman one, I'm probably going to give that one a high one. I'm probably going to give it a little bit higher than the first one. I'll give that one an 8, and then I'll give this one an 8 as well. I did like both of these stories. I did like the, Brian Michael Bendis story a little bit. It was kind of cool. But I wish I got a little bit more action like we did here with this No Justice. And, so I'm looking forward to these stories coming out here in the next few weeks. So stay tuned for these books, guys. All right. So that's going to be our DC Nation 0. So let's move on. All right, Action Comics Special number 1. So this is the one right before Brian Michael Bendis comes on in on the story. We got Dan Jurgens doing this one, this last one here, I believe. And we got Dan Jurgens, Russell Landis, Conrad Thompson, Manipal, and Quintana all in this book. And we open up the book, to a shadowy figure. And it looks like the shadowy figure has entered into the Fortress of Solitude. So, of course, when you enter into this Fortress of Solitude and you're not supposed to be there, there is security in place, right? So we see Kelex come on out here, and he says, unauthorized presence detected, intruder alert. So this shadowy figure puts out his hand, and we see Kelex get blasted by a blast out of this person's hand. And he's down for the count. He is completely damaged. Then you see this shadowy figure say, only Superman can activate Krypton's technology, and he says, engage Mimicgram. And it's kind of like a hand comes out, and it looks like it's a hologram hand, and it picks up one of these crystals, and it activates the crystals. And he says, oh, it works. I can't believe that it worked. So this is one of those cool moments here that this person, grabs up the... And you kind of see the shadowy figure's reflection in here, and to me it kind of looks like it's Lex Luthor here, and we'll find out exactly who it is here pretty soon. So the shadowy figure, next panel, is using some sort of oxygen tank mask, and it covers its mouth. So this person needs an oxygen mask to survive, and the next panel here, next page, we see initiating live feed. Your family appears to be well, Kal-El. And he says, of course, I should have known. And you see a little window open up, and it shows John and Lois Lane here. And it appears to be that Lois Lane is on her way to Paris. And, John's talking with her, and she's like, hey, your dad's going to be back soon, and I'm sure he's going to be, coming in. If you want, there's plenty of food in the fridge. Go in and grab something. And this person appears to know who this is. He's like, oh, Lane, Lois Lane. And he's like, Paris, eh? Too bad you're not going to make it there, pretty much. And then you see the window, you see her walking out the door, and she's like, hey, make sure you do your homework and no TV until it's done. So she's just, on her way out here. So, he says Lane is going to be the key. So he's going to target Lois Lane here, and he knows that this is such a trigger for Clark Kent Superman, that if he hurts Lois Lane and hurts his family, that he's going to react. So we flip the page here, and he says it will be epic. And we see here Superman flying in, and he's got a pizza in his hand. And this is the one thing that kind of got me here. It was like I kind of made fun a little bit and joking around here, and I was wondering, did Superman go and purchase this pizza in his Superman outfit, or did he have to do a quick change into Clark Kent and then buy the pizza and then do another quick change into his Superman outfit just to fly around? I don't think that would have been, I think if it was me, I would have just bought it as Clark Kent and then gotten home as Clark Kent. There's no need for you to do a quick change a couple different times into your Superman suit just so you can fly home and get there fast. Weird. I thought that was kind of odd, but I understand what they were doing here. And they just wanted to see Superman fly with the pizza or something. I'm not too sure. So John gets excited and sees his dad coming in through the window, and he yells, pizza! I guess he's more excited for the pizza than to see his dad. He's been there for a couple hours by himself, so... Then we see him put the pizza on the table, and he's about to open it up. Superman's getting dinner ready, and John gets a text. And he tells him mom went to Paris. She's already at the airport, and he gets this text, and he sees it, and it says that it's from some unknown caller, and it gives information about Lex Air Flight 297 to Paris, seat 12B, name Mrs. Superman, and that immediately triggers Superman to freak out and dip out, and he yells back to John. He says, go to Kara's. Supergirl can protect you as well as I can. And then we flip the page and we see the flight that is in the air we see the airplane that Lois Lane is on, and it is being targeted by a missile. And, there's 5 seconds to impact, and there's a countdown, and then right before it impacts the airplane, Superman breaks it apart, but because of the backfire of this, this missile, the airplane still gets affected. But Superman goes and tries to figure out and make sure that the missile, I guess he goes into the water somehow. It looks like it's water. I'm not too sure exactly where it is. To me, I'm going to say that it's water or something, because it looks like there's water going on around him. So this missile lands into the water, and he follows the missile, but doesn't realize that there's something going on with the airplane. And then he remembers, oh my gosh, I got to get back up there and see if everything's okay. Lois, no. And he goes up there, airplane's on fire, lost an engine, it looks like, because of the backfire, and everybody's freaking out on the plane. There's an explosion, people's going nuts. So, and then obviously Superman saves the day and saves the airplane, because the next page we see that the airplane is on the ground, and he is now with Lois Lane on the rooftop. Then this is another thing. If he grabbed Lois Lane out of the airplane, are people wondering, when they give an account of all the people who are there, if they are all still alive, and they kind of go through the manifest and find out if everybody's accounted for? Do they find that Lois Lane is missing? That's one thing. Anyway, maybe they waited till afterwards, whatever. But now Superman and Lois Lane are on the rooftop, and she's like, "What about John?" He tells her that John is at Kara's, and he tells her how they found out what was going on, and that they got this text. And he's like, they just, someone with a grudge just wants to torture us, and he's like, someone like, and then he thinks of Lex Luthor. So you see him flying over the next Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is being Lex Luthor, and he's yelling at his employees, throwing things on the floor, being a jerk, and it's two business women coming in to show him a proposal, I guess, and then he's reading it over. He gets pretty upset and throws it on the ground. They have to pick up all these files, and he tells them to get out. I want this rewritten by the end of the day, or else you're fired. And so that's what's going on. So we see that, and he's like, and I guess he senses Superman's presence, and he's like, typical you. And he flips and he sees, because we see that Superman kind of melted the window open. And again, if this was Lex Luthor and he hates Superman so much here, or if he's got this grudge against him a little bit, don't you think that he would have some kind of, alert letting him know that Superman was on his way or very close, or have some kind of contingencies in place, so some kind of, alarm, so that Superman wouldn't get anywhere near the building. I don't know. That's what I think. So Superman talks with him about one of his airplanes that crashed, and he tells him, "Yeah, we know about this. We're looking into it ourselves." And Superman, is kind of accusing him of being involved in this. And he's like, I didn't do this. This is not me. Why would I do this to one of my planes? And I guess Superman looks into his vault where Lex Luthor's vault, where Lex Luthor has his suit. So Superman uses his X-ray vision to look through a window. So Superman uses his X-ray vision to look through the wall, or through a vault wall, to see where Lex Luthor has his suit, and to see if he had used it within the last 24 hours, I guess. And he says, 36 hours, it has been used in the last 36 hours, so it wasn't you. And he's like, this is, and I'm starting to feel dizzy. So I guess Lex Luthor does have some kind of kryptonite thing going on around there, or something's going on that's making Superman feel dizzy here in Lex Luthor's office. We don't know what's going on here until I don't know what that's about. So he's like, they both come to the conclusion that, obviously Lex Luthor was not involved. So Batman dips out, and he's like, this is not over. I will find out if this is you, And he's like, and so Lex Luthor is now left in his office, and he says, bring up the attack, isolate the detonation of the freeze frame, and, the computer does that, and he finds out where's the signature trait on the missile's laser guidance system, and they say then the computer says matches that of LexCorp Engineering. So he finds out that this missile originated in one of his facilities, and somebody was using his technology and his missiles. So now we flip the page and we see that Lois Lane, I guess she's back at the office at the Daily Planet, and one of these security guards is like, "Oh yeah, I thought you had the day off, considering what had happened to you in the last couple of days." And she gets onto the elevator. She gets a phone call, and somebody says, "Hey, Miss Superman," and she freaks out, and I guess the elevator starts to break down and it starts to fall, and we see that I'm not too sure if this thing falls out of the building or if it comes out of the building, but she falls, and somebody is there to pick her up, and he says it's an old friend, and it looks like it's Lex Luthor here, but he's in a different suit. This suit is like super huge, and it's completely different from the suit that we had seen just a few pages ago. So now he's like, "Come on, Lane, how could you forget me? And Superman's superior." She screams out Lex, and he drops her. At this point, Superman swoops in to save her, and he's like, "Of course, Clark, you're here," pretty much. And, so they start to fight, and they go back and forth. They're talking about how, and he's like, "I should have known it was you. I knew it was you. Something was up. This is, So they continue to fight. They go back and forth quite a bit. They both crash to the ground. They both are hurting each other, right? And then finally, Lex Luthor screams at him, "I'm the best," and they just start screaming back and forth at each other, And Lex Luthor sees Lois down there running towards the damage that they've created, right? And this Lex Luthor here, he shoots off a missile towards her, and then we see the Lex Luthor that we saw earlier in a much smaller suit, and he saves Lois, and he intercepts the missile, and this other Lex Luthor is like so let's call him, the guy with the big huge one. I don't know what we should call him. Lex Luthor number 1, number 2. So anyway, so this our Lex Luthor comes in, saves Lois, calls this new guy a fraud, and he's like, "Who are you? You're impersonating me." This guy says, "Idiot, I'm doing this for you. That your future will be better with Superman." I'm sure he was about to say dead, because Superman then at that point comes and flies right into the center of this robotic suit, and Lois Lane's screaming at our Lex Luthor, and she says, "Explain this." And he's like, "I can't yet, but only one who gets to use my name, be it good or bad, is me." So this Lex Luthor wants to know what's going on too, and she's like, and so Lois Lane is helping people at this point. She's like, "If you want to do something good, step up, Lex. These people need help." And he's like, "But," so then we see that our version of Lex Luthor goes and starts to help people, and he's preoccupied with that, while Batman is fighting this alternate version of Lex Luthor, and he's like, with tricks, whoever you are, what kind of tricks are you up to? You can't be Lex Luthor. He's like, "Who are you? Tell me." And he rips apart the suit, and then we see that the face that we actually saw wasn't really the Lex Luthor that we know. It was a robotic android, I guess, because when they open up the chest of this robot, then we see who it really is. It is an old decrepit person who looks like they have tubes coming out of their mouth and nose, and it is very similar looking to Lex Luthor. And he says, what's the matter, you alien trash? Still don't recognize your old friend Lex Luthor?" So this is a alternate version of Lex Luthor here. He says, guess an extra 70 years makes me a little unrecognizable, right? took me decades of work, even as I fought the cancer. So this version of Lex Luthor has cancer, and he's dying. To acquire power needed to sustainably pierce the time barrier. When I did, all I wanted was so desperately to have your head on a pike. So, this Lex Luthor figured out a way to go back into time and just to kill Superman here. And Superman says your hate runs so deep that all you could think of was given the power of time travel was revenge. And this Lex Luthor's coughing. He says, I achieved everything in life, but your very existence. He says, but your very existence, that stupid grin, undermined everything. So this Lex Luthor is just so obsessed with revenge and how his hate for Superman. He wants to kill Superman. He goes back in time to kill Superman, and instead of going and figuring out a cure for his cancer so that he can live, right? So then we see that he's just getting so angry, and then something happens, and he's having a heart attack, and he dies. And then just a few seconds after that, Superman here, just a few seconds after he starts to have this heart attack, Superman says, maybe I can, and then there's a spark, I guess, that spark, and then there's a big, huge explosion, and Superman gets blown, pushed back by the boom, and there's a big explosion, and Superman, gets pushed back by the explosion, and he screams out Lex Luthor, and he says, "There's no chance, I can't save you. I couldn't have saved him." And our version of Lex Luthor comes and says, "Save whom, Superman? Who died in that explosion? I demand to know, specifically since you were blaming me for his crimes." So, and then, Superman's, he says, he was a bitter, twisted old man, Luthor, consumed by hate, and the blackness rotted his very soul, whatever he had left. And, he said, shame you couldn't prevent that explosion, would have given the fraud a taste of my own personal style of justice. So, so Lex Luthor demands to know who he was, what was his name, and Superman says, what difference does it make? The abyss consumed him long ago. So he didn't tell this version of Lex Luthor that this was an alternate version of Lex Luthor. It came back in time. He says, as far as I'm concerned, he's been dead for years. And he tells him, before I got to him, he died of natural causes, kind of a thing. So, and so that's what we see in that story. And then we move on to the next page here, and we see another story here. And this story was actually cool. I think this first story was a little bit better than these next couple here. I'm going to give that first story, I'll give it an 8.5, almost a 9 here, because I did like the story. I did like the idea of that version of Lex Luthor coming back to act out his revenge, or act out his obsession of killing Superman, and he'd rather kill Superman than survive. So I like that. The artwork was really great. The writing was actually pretty good too. So we move on to this next one here, and it looks like Lex Luthor is in his limo, and he's going somewhere, and he's thinking about back in the day when he used to get bullied in school. And he said the other kids always treated me differently in school, mostly because their parents worked for my parents, but they showed me respect. Sometimes they were even friendly, but I always knew better than to consider them friends. These things got worse whenever Dad's factory announced layoffs. It was then that I realized that respect is never given; it has to be paid for. So that right there is Lex Luthor in a nutshell, right? Then we see Lex Luthor. He is going to, I guess he's at the correspondence dinner here, the White House correspondence dinner. So we see him there, and he enters into the dinner. Then he has another flashback of when his father's company, when he kind of first took over the company, and his dad was giving him some kind of a little advice here, and as Lex Luthor took over the company, he, changed the name from Lex Co. to, for Luthor Co. to Lex Corp. And we see that kind of transition here, and he's like, I'm going to do this better than my father can, kind of thing. So, and then he enters into the correspondence dinner here, and then we see that people are, I guess, they're doing a roast, and they are, she says, I'm proud to represent the Daily Planet, one of the few newspapers still not owned by LexCorp. And I'd like to thank my boss, Perry White, whose leadership made it not worth owning. So at this correspondence dinner here, they are doing a roast, right? And they're talking about making fun of, I'm sure, the president here. So she says, we see Lois Lane here. She says, I'm proud to represent the Daily Planet, one of the newspapers still not owned by LexCorp. And I'd like to thank my boss, Perry White, whose leadership made it not worth owning. And she says, so we're honored here to have the President of the United States here tonight, right? She says, whoa, is that gangster rapper DEFCON 4 sitting one table from the President? She said, sir, aren't you nervous sitting that close to a stone-cold killer? I'm of course speaking to DEFCON 4. Didn't you hear about the drones? Didn't you hear about the drone strikes in Somalia? The guy has killed more kids than the Hunger Games. It's all good and fun, but seriously, we're ruled by a murderer. So that's pretty crazy there. And then we flip the page, and it is, I guess, 2 weeks earlier, and they're getting ready for their speeches here, and she, Lois Lane is talking to Clark here, and she says, and now please welcome my colleague from the Daily Planet, Clark Kent. And he's like, oh boy, I don't know if I can do this, Lois. Clark, it's a White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's once in a lifetime opportunity. I know, but most of these people are friends of mine, and jokes, they're so mean. These jokes are so mean. So she says, Clark, do you know why we expect people with power to laugh at themselves? And he says, why? She says, to prove they can. Only a psychopath is incapable of laughing at themselves. Making fun of them to their faces tells them you think they're stable enough to take it. I suppose you're right, Lois. What harm could it do? Just get a few jokes off. Once people start laughing, you'll loosen up. And so we see Clark Kent is up on stage, and he's now telling his jokes. And he says, I see the Flash is in the house tonight. Better hope he doesn't dine and dash. And, people kind of don't get that joke there, and they kind of don't laugh. So he continues with his jokes, and he's joking. We got, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash there, and he tells a joke about them a little bit. And he says, I can only assume that Batman is somewhere out there brooding like a teenage poet. Imagine what would happen if this building came under attack right now. I'll fight from the ground in the Batmobile. So he's just joking about everybody, and he says, I'll attack from in the air in my invisible jet, and I'll go check on the fish. So he's just making fun of all of our superheroes that are actually there. So we flip a couple of pages, and we see Clark Kent talking about Superman and the many different times that he has foiled the attempts of Lex Luthor and doing his criminal stuff. And he's talking about how, wow, you are like the Washington General of supervillains. Oh, I remember reporting on this one, and he's just showing little video excerpts of, Lex Luthor in his suit and how he was a little bit of a villain here. And, and then they show a video that was caught on tape that, even though you're a villain, even though you're like a general of villains, you still had time for a victory moon pie. So they're just telling jokes, right? And, anyway, so we move on. You see Lex Luthor get up and walk out, and he goes to the restroom, and, there's another guy walk in there. He's like, oh, my head. And he says, hey, it's Moon Pie. Just saw you I just saw you. And he's like, just joking with you, pal. Don't take it so personal, Moon Pie. And this guy's just making fun of him, and Lex Luthor's pretty upset looking. And he leaves, and he's got his guys outside the door, and he's like, Urinal 3. And these guys are like awesome. Then they like punch their hands, and they were about to beat this guy up, I guess. And Lex Luthor gets on the phone, and he's like, hey, it's Lex. Form the exploratory committee. I'm running for president. So I guess this whole time, I guess, has made Lex Luthor think about all the things that he's accomplished and what he's done and his humanitarian efforts, I guess, supposedly, and how he wants some kind of power. So the ultimate power is he's going to become president, right? So that's what Lex Luthor's going to do. He's going to run for president. So weird. So this story was all right. I mean, the artwork was okay, but it was just like one of those ones I was like, I could have done without it. I read this one and I was like, whatever. That's whatever. But we got this next story here. It's called Driver's Seat. Lois Lane, Superman and Lois Lane in the driver's seat. We see Lois Lane, and it looks like it could be winter. Everybody's got jackets on, and this artwork is actually kind of cool. I did like this. So we see Lois Lane is driving, and there's no words on any of these panels, and we see that somebody crashes into her vehicle, and then we flip the page, and we see that a villain is flying off in a jetpack, and he's got 2 duffel bags full of money. Money's flying around, and he's like, I did it, actually did it, and we see Superman flying in. Superman's like, excuse me, and this guy's like, no, and he's like, hey. Superman comes like, hi, how's it going? He takes his jetpack off, and this guy's like gripping onto his duffel bags, and Superman's like, how many people did you hurt down there? And the guy's like, nobody, Superman. That was the whole idea. I made the jetpack. I wanted to get away with that so I didn't hurt anybody, I wanted to get in and out before anybody knew what happened. And Superman's like, where'd you get this? He says, I built it. You need to understand, I was desperate. I lost my place. All I had was my garage and my tools, so I made it. And my wife was going to leave me and take our kids. I just wanted to, and Superman's like, what's your record before this? And the guy's like, clean. You can check. My name is Marvin Haskins. And he's like, okay, Marvin, here's what we're going to do. I'm sorry you built this in your garage. He's like, I'm sorry. Wait, you built this in your garage? And he's like, yeah, the guys at the lab all said I was crazy. He says, you built a jetpack in your garage, and your first thought was, I should use this to commit a crime. And Marvin was like, well, when you put it that way. And Superman says, I'm going to take you down there to the police. You're going to have to stand trial. This was your choice. But I'm going to take this thing, and I'm going to hide it. And when I hear you're getting out, I'm going to give it back, and you're going to patent it, and you're going to make some real money. You made a bad decision today, but you're clearly a genius, and this technology could help people. And this guy's like, what, really? He's like, yeah, sorry, just a minute. And Superman gets a phone call, and he's like, oh man, what's going on? And so he leaves, and we see he is now dressed as Clark Kent, and he's standing next to Lois, and her car is all tore up. And he's like, well, at least you're okay. And Lois just starts breaking down, crying. He's like, oh, sorry, Lois, what's up? And she's like, no, it's fine, Clark. I just had that car for 12 years. It was my high school graduation gift, and I drove it from New York to California, from California to Canada, and all this way back to Metropolis. I used it to drive every day to work at the library, listening to the same 3 John Mayer songs. I'm sorry, Lois. I'm sorry that you listened to those same 3 songs. That's anyway. So she says, just me in that stupid ratty old driver's seat. It was like my friend. It was my family. It's like, come on. This part was like, oh my gosh. This chick's got horrible taste in music, and she's got horrible taste in a car, because this thing just looks like a little crappy hatchback, and it's just so tore up. Anyway, he's like, she says, I guess I'd drive it up to my aunt's with you tonight for Christmas, through those woods one more time. She says, I guess I thought I'd drive it up to my aunt's with you for Christmas, through those woods one more time. I wasn't ready to say goodbye. It's like this thing's a freaking human being to her or something weird, right? So anyway, we see, Clark Kent's flipping through. They are now in a, I guess, what is this, a rental or whatever, because, that's what happens when you get into a car accident. So now they're driving up to her aunt's, and we see Clark Kent flipping through the radio, and he hears news, and he's like, Haskins, a disgraced quantum physicist whose life fell apart after LexCorp's hostile takeover of Polar Tech. Now we're with Lois on the roof, and we see that Superman is there with a Santa Claus hat on, and he has her old seat, driver's seat, and steering wheel from her car, right? And he says, Merry Christmas, Lois. And she says, why are you like this? I guess she's like wondering what he's doing. And he grabs her up in a seat and the steering wheel, and he just flies off with her. And I guess just so that she can reminisce with her car, I guess, or feel like she's driving this car again. This was kind of an odd ending here. What happens to Haskins? You know what I mean? Did his sentence get worse, or did he get a lowered sentence, or what's going on here? I'm not sure what happens, but I guess this is the end here, and I guess it was cool to see Superman in a Santa hat, whatever. So I guess this is what we're doing here. The one thing that I did like about this story was, I did like the artwork. It looked pretty cool. It was awesome. That's what I liked about it. So, and the last one, I'm probably going to give it, because of the story wasn't so great. The artwork was good, but the story wasn't it was just one of those ones I was like, I don't think I needed this story. It was just kind of, I read it and I was like, oh man, I wish something better happened here. But I guess, I wonder if they're going to move forward with Lex Luthor, putting in his, announcing that he's going to be running for president now. Okay, that was kind of intriguing, but I will give that one, I'm going to say a 6 on the last one, and then on this one, I'm probably going to give this one let's give it 7.5 to an 8, because I did like this one a lot. The story was kind of cool, but then the ending was kind of like, it kind of dropped off a little bit. I liked where it was going with how we find out who Superman really is, and how he really actually looks out for people. He just doesn't go grab the bad guy and just stick him in a jail and forgets about him. He actually cares, and he wants to rehabilitate everyone, right? He believes that there's better, people are generally good, and there's rehabilitation for everyone. So that's my Superman, right? That's who Superman is, and that's what the idea of Superman, that's who he is, and that what the Superman embodies, right? He's there to help us out in every aspect of our lives. If, we do something wrong, he expects us to, stand up and say, okay, I did wrong. I made a mistake, so now I'm going to, face the consequences of my mistakes. But, he's going to look out for us, and he's going to be there for us if we do something good too. So that's Superman. That's it, right? Okay. So this is the end of this book. And, we're going to move on to our next books here. I've got, let's see, what's our next book? Batman number 46. And this is actually a cool treat here, guys. My wife actually did a cool segment here that I'm going to call My Wife Hates Comics, and she reviewed Batman number 46 with me, and that's going to come up next for you. After that one, I'm going to go back and review Nightwing number 44, and this one was actually kind of, an odd one for me. There were so many different things here that I thought, this is not the Nightwing that I know, and this is, I really hope that they're not going to be going in this direction with this, Nightwing, because we got a new guy on the book here, and I just really hope that they are going to do something different, but not this way, because, Nightwing in this book, he is all against technology, and he's like old school, but dude, he's in his 20s. I don't think he's anywhere near his 30s, you know what I mean? He might be late 20s, mid-20s, but come on, anybody nowadays who's in their mid-20s, they're all about technology. I work with a bunch of kids who are in their early to mid-20s, and they're all about, social media and technology and all this stuff. I don't know one of those kids out there that are completely against it. Like, I mean, people in my age range and a little bit older would probably, have this kind of, I don't want technology too much into my life. I want, I don't want anything to do with it, but the 20-somethings, that's their life. Technology is their life. So I don't know how I feel about this version of Nightwing. So let's actually get into this next segment that I'm going to call My Wife Hates Comics. So here we go, guys.
Put your comic book down and listen to your wife, please. I don't have time to read a book. I've already told you that.
Alright guys, I'm here with my wife and we're going to review Batman 46, but I'm going to call this segment My Wife Hates Comics because she's not a comic book geek like I am. She's not into this kind of stuff, but I had her read this and she's going to tell you guys that I forced her to read it, right babe?
Meow.
But she's got a couple of ideas on this book and how she felt about it. But I'm going to give you guys an account of what I read and how it looks. So, my first impression of this book, some of the artwork was actually pretty good. I did have some trouble with the dialogue, but I did like the colors and the artwork. But the dialogue was what really, really got me, and it kind of frustrated me a little bit. So
I was going to say some trouble with the dialogue. That's all we've talked about.
Right, a lot of problems with the dialogue. I guess you would say. So we open up this book, and it's about a year later from number 45 with the Booster Gold when he went with the Booster Gold story when he went back in time and saved Bruce Wayne's mother and father. So we see that there is an explosion here at Arkham Asylum. And we flip the page, and we see that Booster Gold has broken into Arkham Asylum, and there's a woman there, and all she can say is
meow.
And so we assume that it's Selina Kyle, right? And he says, hello, I'm Booster Gold. I'm here to save you, and together we'll save the world. And all she says is meow.
Meow.
So. And we flip the page, and then we see that we have Thomas Wayne and Bruce Wayne, and they're looking out over the city, and the city is just engulfed in flames, and there's helicopters all over the place. And, Thomas Wayne is talking about how, they got word yesterday that that Siri... And this is the first part that gets me really, really bad here with the dialogue. And I'm going to read it. It says, got word yesterday, that serial killer, that Catwoman... someone just took her out of Arkham. Right there, that just kind of made me cringe when I read it for the first time.
This Batman will go after her. It will be chaos. Like
this Batman, like almost as if Thomas Wayne's like, I know that there was another version of Batman, and it was you,
right?
And then it was me too, because in Flashpoint, Thomas Wayne was Batman. I didn't tell you that before. Thomas Wayne was Batman, and he used guns as well. But his whole thing was that he used guns because his wife and son were killed, and he was going to have revenge on any criminal that he came in contact with because they were killed using a gun. So he was going to use the guns as this new persona that he took on as Batman. That whole idea of that Flashpoint version of Batman with Thomas Wayne as Batman, that made sense into why he was using guns. But I have no idea why this version of Batman uses guns, because it's Nightwing. It's Dick Grayson who is the Batman in here. And in my last show, I talked about how, in my opinion, I believe that if Dick Grayson were to become Batman, I don't think he would have became sorry, I've got Catwoman on my brain because she's nuts and all she says is meow. But
meow.
So if Dick Grayson were to become Batman, I don't think he would be a Bat type of character, because that's not in his repertoire, I guess you would say, because he didn't have the same kind of he didn't fall down the cave like Batman did. He didn't get scared of all the bats that were flying around once they heard him fall. Like that's just because that was Batman's experience, and that's what pushed Batman to become Batman, or Bruce Wayne to become Batman. So I don't think that Nightwing should have been. I think he should have been the Nightwing character, but he should have, just been this crazy person that is, killing other people because they'll become Jokered. So that's my take on that. But so we got Bruce Wayne and Thomas here, and looks like they're in the office, and they're talking about how it's going to be chaos, and that to stop the chaos, Cobblepot, which is the Penguin, he's president, and he's not like mayor of Gotham. He's not anything. He's just automatically, because Batman. But because Bruce Wayne doesn't become Batman, that means that the Penguin becomes the president. That's another off the wall thing that I saw, that I noticed as well. But he says that Cobblepot will work with Ra's al Ghul and allow Ra's al Ghul to send his forces and to work, all that work money, and all I did for nothing, I guess. And that's another one. I think he should have said Gotham there or something, but there's nothing there. They didn't say Gotham or anything. He says, I've tried for this city and I've failed. So, and they're talking, and he turns his back and he says, Father, no. He says, no excuses. Gotham is a war zone for monsters, jokers, madmen dressed like a bat, and you can't remember, but it's supposed to be a paradise, and now it's blood. It's all blood, and now Arkham falls, the city Gotham falls, and I fall. Like, that's almost as if he's like, I know I'm about to have this heart attack, so I'm gonna have this awesome last speech about falling, I guess. And then the last issue, Batman was talking about, I had a dream about I was falling, and then pearls were falling, and then I was falling. It's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna talk about this all over again.
And now I'm falling asleep.
Right. So Bruce rushes over to his father, who is now fallen on the floor, and he had a heart attack, I'm sure. We don't know if he's going to be dead or alive here. So
why does he call him father? Are we in The Sound of Music? Hey,
or like, are we like Dwight Schrute from from The Office? Hello, Mater, Fater. So, hey, Fater, you fall in on the floor. So we flip the page, and we've got Booster Gold and Selina Kyle laying provocatively on a bed here in a seedy hotel. Like, that's creepy.
Do not lay on that blanket.
Take a black light to this entire hotel room.
Pull your shirt down, honey. You don't want that on your skin.
Oh, no, that's meow. So Booster Gold, it gives another crazy account of, I don't know, this whole dialogue just frustrates me. So, he says, see, I know all Batman's adventures. I'm a big Batman fan. He says, yeah, everyone's a big Batman fan, but I'm a fan from the future. It's like, really?
It keeps going.
And this one time, Ivy had taken over the world, and Batman found Harley, and Ivy loves Harley, so that all worked out, and the world wasn't taken over. Like, okay, guys, you guys just wrote that just so you can throw that title of another book in there, which is Ivy Loves Harley or whatever. Okay. Or Harley Loves Ivy, whatever they call it.
So, the way you read it is not the way I see it.
Okay, how did you see it?
Okay, so all of those bold, italic-y,
right,
they're like sarcastic.
Okay.
So, see, I know all Batman's adventures. I'm a big Batman fan, and everyone's a big Batman fan. But I'm a fan from the future, and this one time Ivy had taken over the world, and Batman found It's ridiculous.
Right.
Like this.
Right. That's the emphasis on those words.
He genuinely loves to listen to himself.
And that's what I say. I think too. He loves the sound of his own voice.
I feel that way about my husband sometimes.
I want to meet him. Is his name? Is his name Booster Gold?
No, but he has buns like him.
I've got flat buns like Booster Gold. So then that's the solution. It should be
right.
the
now,
solution.
Do you see it that way now?
We just have to find what Batman loves, and you're what Batman loves. He loves you so much. He did all of this stuff for you, and you for him, and he's going to marry you, not here, over there, but he's like there. We're here, so you're here. Like,
there should be a question mark there, almost.
Like, yeah, but there's not. But you're here,
right?
That all of that just
So
when I read this for the first time.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated, and I had to read this whole, and it's just 3 panels, and I had to read these 3 panels over and over again because I was like, did I read that wrong? Is my grammar horrible? Did I just see something?
You almost started talking like Booster Gold just now. Am I
wrong?
So
did I read this wrong?
This morning when you were like, you almost have to read this out loud. And I told you I did. This was the part that I had to read out loud because I was like, am I unable to read all of a sudden? Do I not know how to read? And
right.
This is the part where I texted you and I said, none of these words go together.
Right. It's
like they're just.
You told me on the phone too. You said that this sounds like somebody just grabbed a bunch of words off of a page and just threw it at another page.
Yeah.
Or a bunch of words out of the dictionary and just threw it on this page.
Right. It doesn't. And I noticed that when he talks in general, that's what it's like. I mean,
I just spoke like Booster Gold there. I said he took it from a page and threw it on another page and then another page and then another page.
Why do you think I compared you to him? However,
thanks. Appreciate it.
However, this and the guy who wrote this,
Tom King.
Like, I have English teachers that I would love him to meet. Like, that's my number one. I genuinely think that this gentleman needs some assistance. Either that or he's tired. He's tired of writing.
Oh,
because
I don't know.
This is horrible.
He's on Twitter all the time, and he's just boasting about how awesome this stuff is and how... I mean, there's people out there, and you know what? This is a review podcast, and I'm reviewing this stuff, and I'm telling you the way I feel when I read this. And if I make people upset about this, you know what I mean? Sorry, but this is my opinion, and form your own opinion when you read it. That's number one. That's what I always say. Form your own opinion when you read this, and this is just to get you guys to be like, hey, that's this guy's opinion. It's gonna intrigue me to want to read this and take and have my own take on this. And I'm not, no way am I saying that these people don't have talent. Hey, that's why I'm not writing comic books, and that's why I'm not an artist, right? That's why I just talk about them. Because
well, this is what I'm gonna say: is I have never in my life read a Batman comic. Like, there was a moment when you'd gotten me the Fraggle Rock and you got me a Gem comic, and I read a couple pages of it, and that was my only experience, minus the comics in the Sunday paper. Okay, I've never
Family Circus.
So this is genuinely my first experience, and so I don't want.
I'm sorry that this is your first experience.
Well, and I don't want to offend this guy because you told me he won awards or an award
he's an Eisner winner, yeah,
for writing. And because you're so popular, he may read this, or he may hear this, right?
Nobody's going to listen to this.
So I don't mean to offend him.
My mom might.
At the same time, like, bro ruined comics for me.
I'm so sorry that I had you read this for the first time. I should have had you read something completely different, like an actual
like
one
Fraggle Rock.
I guess so.
Because the writing was way better in that.
I wonder if I never read that one, but I wonder.
You should.
I wonder if I should read that one and compare the
good.
writing. So
I'm just kidding.
So this is what we get here. We get he's trying to convince her, but this is another thing. I talked to you about this today. Mm-hmm. That this is not a alternate version of these characters, right? This is their reality. Booster Gold went back in time, changed the timeline. He saved Bruce's mother and father from being killed. So the timeline changed, right?
Right.
So nobody has any recollection. I'm sorry, I'm speaking Booster Gold here. Recollection of their past lives, because I was telling you, this is almost like me coming to you and your father's passed away, right? So this is like almost me like going back in time, saving your father's life, and your father's alive, and then me coming to you and saying, hey, and sitting next to you in the car, and I'm saying, hey babe, your father's alive. I did that. I saved him. And you look back at me, you're like, you're nuts. Right. You're absolutely nuts. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
My father's always been alive. He's never there. He's 100% healthy, and that's what people would be feeling, But this guy goes and he wants to go and tell everybody, hey. So he looks like he's an insane person,
right? And
then now he's even grown a beard a year later, and he looks like he's seriously crazy, right? Like he's that person that's like out in the middle of New York, screaming at people. You know what I mean? Tell him, hey, he's not. He's a crazy. Homeless guy yelling at people, telling them, hey, there's an alternate reality. I'm from the future. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen different shows where there's this crazy guy with signs, hey, there's impending doom, there's future. I'm from the future. I've seen it happen, right? That's who Booster Gold is in this issue.
Right. Well, if you look at the artwork in here, and if you're supposed to gather, the sounds and all of that from the artwork. In the first one, he's hollering, and then poor Meow is like staring all emo status at the ground,
right.
And then he's like in her face, like contemplating, but still talking to himself. And then, right. I don't know if someone's cutting an onion, but he's got his eyes shut, all crazy, all scrunched up.
But
and then
did
the
you
very
notice,
next panel, he's like hollering in her face again.
Did you notice, what is that what is that stain on the roof there? Do you see that? There's some really gross stains on that roof.
That's a water leak.
This is a horrible... Yeah. I don't know if that's a water leak. that's right over the bed. I'm just saying. Oh. But this is a really seedy hotel. This is really gross.
This is a motel.
Like, this is a roach hotel.
Oh, look,
roach
if you
motel.
look really close, there's wallpaper, and then it's not.
There's like what were they doing? On that wallpaper. That's horrible. I don't know. So
maybe that's why he's scrunching his eyes.
It's like he's like, I'm getting too close to this bed. It's horrible.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so he's like, so that's the plan. What do you think? And she says, meow. And he's like, huh, okay, I see. Like, it's like, dude, he doesn't even think that she's like, oh my gosh, does he realize that she hasn't even said a word? And I maybe that's what they're trying to get at here. That he's just so self-absorbed that he doesn't even know what's going on around him, that he doesn't even realize that she's nuts and she's not even saying words.
Right.
Right? And so and does she really think she's a cat? That's my thing.
Okay, but he busted her out of Arkham. What is isn't Arkham like a crazy hospital?
It's an insane
yeah.
And look,
insane asylum.
See, I'm so like this reading this. This is like the third or fourth time reading this. I lost brain cells. I can't even speak. But
so it would make sense
asylum.
that she probably does think that she's a cat. I mean, if she was locked up in an insane asylum,
see, we can't speak.
That's a hard thing to say, though.
Insane asylum.
Yeah, in an insane asylum. There we go. Cut half of that out, please.
Right, I'll edit that later. But yeah, and then he says, "No, you're right. This is insane. Why would he? I mean, you wouldn't just. It'll never work. At least, right? I didn't stutter. That's the way it's written. That's what it says there. It says at least not without a whole bunch of leather. Yeah. So this is another thing. Don't talk about leather in a creepy, seedy hotel like that. That's that's and
like somehow the leather is gonna make it okay. Like
it's gonna leather makes it all better, I guess.
Is that what it is? Is that the secret to a happy marriage right there?
I guess so. Dress up like Catwoman and don't say a word except for meow.
Is that what I have to look forward to tonight?
I guess so. So, and then we flip the page, and we need to go to church because here's Bruce Wayne's in church, right? And And this is another thing. Even his prayers here, the way it's written is even little, I don't know. Let's go ahead and read this here. So he says, try not to ask for anything. He says, I try not to ask for anything. I have so much, and I'm so grateful, but I have to. My Father, everything's wrong, everywhere, everything. But Father, I just want my dad, okay? It's enough. Please. Like, that's the way it's written. I didn't stutter. I didn't do anything.
Okay. So in the second page, we talked about how weird it was that he was calling his dad father. Yeah. Right? Father, whatever. We made the joke. But here, he's all confused with it. Because he's talking to Heavenly Father as father. Right. And now all of a sudden, his dad's been downgraded to dad. Right. I'm like make up your mind, dude.
Father, I need my father.
Right?
So, but yeah, I think that's probably what we feel here. He's like, he's confused that he's trying to. Does he know how to pray? Is this like the first time that he's ever been in church?
Right.
So he's like, doesn't know how to pray. Like he doesn't even say amen.
No, he says. Somebody says please. The wall says please. The Virgin Mary says please.
Yeah, because there's a panel here. The very last panel, all it shows is 2 candles and a Virgin Mary, and it says please, but there's no, it's not like a word bubble. It doesn't show like anybody. It's just a circle with the words please.
And then we're back to Crazy Town.
So, but that's how it reads. It reads as if somebody said it. We don't know. I mean, obviously he's the only one there, but like you coming in as somebody who doesn't read the comics, yeah, that confused you, right? Mm-hmm. So all this confused me, and this is. I'm sorry that this is your first, book that you've ever read here. So we flip the page and we see Booster Gold on a rooftop here, right? And he's like, it's rooftop time kind of thing, I guess, because you guys.
His stance up there is hilarious,
right?
And what he says while he's up there.
Go ahead and read it.
So he's standing up on this building, and he's got like this. I don't even know what pose that is.
I'm going to call it rooster because he's got this.
He's got a rooster pose, and he says, "I tried to sew it, but I'm not good at sewing." What?
He says, who could sew? Ted Cord, the Blue Beetle. He helped me fix his costume too many times, or fix my costume, so many times. Also, like really, like. Okay, I get what it is. Because he's saying that that the Blue Beetle made his costume there, or what is he saying? Or did he make Blue Beetle's costume? Like, what is he saying here? So
and then like, it gets even more like weird. The dialect with himself is even it's weird. I tried to find Ted to help with all of this. He could help, but turns out. He was on a mission with most of the people. The super people. The Justice League. Fighting Starro. Bang! Pow! What?
Oh, okay, but I thought there was like no superheroes, and Batman was just going off killing all the superheroes because most of the superheroes were coming Jokerized, or in this story they call it Jokered. Like.
Well, I thought bang and pow were just supposed to be sound effects, not something you said. Is that like the pew, pew, pew fake gun thing?
So, that, or I don't know. This book is all over the place. And it says, without Batman to Batman usually had a what?
No, see, you're okay. And without Batman to... Batman usually has a strategy, Batman is 2 steps ahead, and we're...
Oh, my gosh. The way this reads
and without
is
his
so frustrating.
Steps, I guess. Like...
But I almost read this as if, like, without Batman to Batman, almost as if it was like he was, like, using it as, Batman's going to do something Batman-like, you know what I mean? So, weird. I don't know. And then he had to do the whole... and without Batman to Batman, and then he's like, Batman is 2 steps ahead. Like, oh my gosh, dude. Oh my, this is horrible. He's like, so they all died, the super people, the Ted's dead. Like, hold on. I thought you just said that they were all off saving the world. Like, now they're dead? When did that happen? Were they dead when you started this conversation? Like what? I don't get this. I
So
don't get it.
you made a statement earlier today when we were reading that the first book, the one right before
45,
this.
yeah.
And you told me that he looked like the creepy mouth breather. So now,
And then I did the sound effects for you. So cool.
creepy.
Right.
So after you've said that, and I look at like the artwork in here, look at his little over the shoulder look. It's super creepy. And then look,
Oh, man.
he jumps up, he elevates, he like looked down so serious and like sensual, and then he like flirt eyes with you. Look at him, he's flirting with you. And what he says when he flirts with you, so I get to sew, and you get to look like. Now, I realize it's going to flip to the next page where she's like scantily getting her like pose on. But here's the thing. How many times have you heard like the really inappropriate story about like the guy who measures you for his suit and then he's measuring your inseam?
Oh my God. Is that what he was like? That's what he had to have measured her, right? He was, that's inappropriate.
He has her in that seedy motel and now he's measuring her inseam.
And meow.
Okay, but look, I don't know if you noticed this, but it says, and you get to look like
that.
You did see that up there. Okay, good. I'm like, what the heck?
And then we got Catwoman, who is in a leather suit that looks very much like the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman suit. And she's bending over.
Insert fart noise.
Right, and that's what I feel like I should like. She's like kind of like crouched down on one knee, and she's got another knee up. But what is in her hand? A mouse. This woman thinks she is a cat. Is she going to eat that thing?
I don't know.
What is she going to do with that?
She's definitely seen one too many of those Facebook posts for the new nail fashions.
Oh yeah, because she got some crazy. Weird. What would our 15-year-old daughter say about her nails?
They're on fleek, and then she would turn around and complain about the way her ear looks.
Yeah, because they're crooked. They're definitely crooked. Because she hates when our dog Harley's ears are bent, right? Yeah, our dog's name is Harley Quinn. Just saying, guys. Just want to name drop on that one. Mm-hmm. So, and then we flip the page, right? And then we've got Jason Todd. He's going to court because one of his tires killed somebody. In the last issue, we saw that he has those tires that tase people once they touch them, right? So I guess where is it? Who did it
Todd
kill?
Tire tase.
It killed 17 children.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Right.
17
When
kids.
I read that, I had to go, wait, what? And reread it. I was like, that escalated quickly.
Right? Very quickly. A year later, this guy's tires are killing people. Like, dude, what are
16 children.
Oh my, no,
Court documents
17.
revealed accidents
17.
involving touching the tires have resulted in the unintended deaths of 16 children. Oh, I'm sorry, 17 children over the last year. You're right, sorry.
Yeah, 17. I was like, was there another typo?
Right.
Because the last issue, they said it was Batman's birthday, but then he said that it was his parents' anniversary, right? So that was kind of weird. But and so now we go to because Bruce and his mother are in the hospital and they see this on the TV, right? So, and it says Mr. Todd is represented by the Dent firm, though his lawyer, he claims that such incidents are the unfortunate byproduct of trying to improve this tough city, I guess. So I guess that's what a shiesty lawyer would say, right? Just to get their guy off the case. So anyway, we go on to Bruce and his mother, and you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, and you were like, and I thought about this. I got something to say about this too. So he's like, mother, it's going to be fine. She says, oh, Brucey, you never were the world's greatest detective.
Oh,
okay.
What is Bruce Wayne's job?
Right? What does he do? I don't think they ever say.
Did that change too?
Yeah, right. So, all right. So let's go ahead and flip over here to the next page, and we see the doctor come out. He's like, Mrs. Wayne.
Oh, this page made me laugh.
Oh, this made me so mad.
Yeah.
So says Mrs. Wayne, if you'll come with me, she says, my Thomas. He says, Miss Wayne, please, if you'll follow me. She says,
We are the Waynes of
Gotham. We do not follow. You will tell us now. It's like, oh my gosh. Right? She just got uppity on us right there. She is like
straight up. Well, she does uppity. Have the give me the manager haircut.
Right? Oh man. So it says, I'm glad. So the doctor's even like, oh crap, she's one of these people right here. So he's like, I'm glad to report he's come through. Mr. Wayne is doing well. And she's like, and she like falls into Bruce Wayne's like chest and is like, oh Bruce, like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? So then we flip the page again, and here's.
But hold on, go back really quick because
okay.
Let's talk about this. We got our first panel, that's great. Second panel, we've got her face, and obviously there's worry and concern, and then doctor's face, and then you see her face again, and she gets real dark, real quick.
Right?
Like, did she get Jokerized?
Right?
And then she goes like, right back. Like,
but it's like totally that uppity, like rich person, thing.
Yeah.
It's like, how dare you? The Waynes don't follow. Right? You follow me. Like, that's, whoa, girl. Chill.
Slow it down.
Slow your roll. You know what I mean? Slow your roll.
I want to speak to the manager, please.
But look at her. The 3 panels that we have her in here, she's like concerned.
Right.
She's pissed. And then she's crying. Like, girl, take your menopause pills.
Well, you see, and I see that, and I go, hey, look, it's my 15-year-old.
Oh, yeah, that it's either one or the other, right?
Drama.
So now we flip to the next page, and we see Catwoman
saying something other than meow.
Oh, pure and hiss.
Right.
So, but we see more of those weird word bubbles where nobody's really saying it. It's just there. Okay, and then here we got Selena Kyle, and she's like on a fire escape. And she obviously says purr. That's the only thing she says, right? Mm-hmm. She says, like you said, she says something other than meow right here, right? And we see somebody says, Selena Kyle, die. And she's, taking a cigarette out. Hey, whoa. She's not that crazy insane. She knows how to put a cigarette in, right? But what were you saying to me just a second ago? You were saying,
as a woman, as a mother, and as, a mother of a daughter in there, my big problem with a lot of these comic books, but specifically this right here that we're looking at, she, like, what is the purpose of the over-sexualization?
Right.
Like, we've talked about it time and time again. We've talked about, Comic-Con and you wanting to take our son with you, Ezekiel with you, but we don't want to go because it's like sex in your face. Dude,
right.
If this is just entertainment, why does she have to be sucking on that cigarette like that?
Right.
Why she got to be like this outfit is not flattering on her flat butt, number one, but why do I have to look at her flat butt and this whole... I don't understand the over-sexualization of women in comic books. Or in that whole world. Like, I'm not asking.
Or at least when a man writes the book or draws the book,
right?
Because we have some books here that are written by women and done by women entirely. And I'm not gonna say that they don't over-sexualize them because that's the character in some point issues, but a lot of that they don't emphasize on that like men would, I guess. I don't know if that's just a stigma or what you're gonna want.
So
what we would say, but that's what it is.
There's my side note with it. We have these comic book characters that are supposed to be strong women.
Right.
That are supposed to be strong women, right? We have Wonder Woman, and she's supposed to be a strong woman who stands for truth and righteousness and goodness and this, that, and the other. But the chick has got her boobs out like nobody's business. And she's wearing Daisy Dukes. Like,
right.
Does
we all
truth
know,
and righteousness have to be cleavage and butt cheeks?
And we all know where Wonder Woman came from, right?
Yeah. And she's got her lasso of truth. Like, come on, dude. Does it have to be sex?
But that's where Wonder Woman came from, right?
The
Marston.
I get that.
That's how he created her from. He created her from that creepy world.
Okay,
right?
I get that. That's where she came to be from. That's where his imagination got it from. I get that. But in her story, she's supposed to be a strong woman who uses her sexuality to get what she wants. That's not a strong woman.
Yes, right.
It's not a strong woman.
Right.
You've got, Supergirl. Does Supergirl, who's supposed to be a young girl,
Need that
have
tiny
to
skirt?
be right? Like, I get that it's a fantasy, but in the world that we live in, do we really need to teach our daughters that that's what a Supergirl is? That's what a Wonder Woman is?
Right.
Because
I agree.
we joke about me being a Wonder Woman all the time, but do I walk around like that?
No.
Well, I don't have
I
the
wish.
body for it,
I wish.
but but still, it's that irks me, and that's one of my issues, and why I'm like, I want nothing to do with this world, because I don't want our children to think this.
Right.
Okay, so that rants over on that.
So that's our over sexualization rant there.
Yeah.
So we've got, you know, and we don't ever see Batman completely and entirely in this issue. Actually, I did just think of that just now. We only see like pieces. We see his legs and his arms and a gun here, you know. And he's like, you know, Catwoman shield, you know, and he's like, you behind. Like, oh my gosh, really? Again, we get this guy's, you know, this guy's dialogue
Right.
again. And you know,
when did Batman start using guns? That was my question to you earlier that we talked about, which I think is asinine. Just another.
So in this
stupidness of
issue,
it.
like we were talking about a little bit ago, I brought it up in my last when we did a review on the last book, Batman 45. I was like, why does every alternate version of Batman have to have guns? We had in Flashpoint, we had Thomas Wayne use guns. In this one, he's got guns. You know, and it's because it's the complete opposite. They always have to have the opposite of what Batman is. Batman doesn't use guns, and he stands for no guns, and that's his big thing, right? No killing, no guns. And the opposite of that is guns and killing.
Right.
But and I talked about it with some other guys on another podcast, and I was talking to them on Twitter, and we were talking about how that almost seems like it's a little too lazy just to be like, oh well, that's just the easy go-to. You know, the opposite of Batman is a Batman with guns who kills, and that's what we kind of talk about a little bit there. So now in this next panel here, we see, you know, we see Batman, and he says, "Booster Gold, die." You know, Selena Kyle, die, right? And then that's all he says. Again, what's with the one-liners in this issue? You know, and it says, and Booster Gold's like, you know, it's going to be okay. It's going to be great. In fact, everything's just so great, as he's blasting Batman with his blasters out of his hand. And Batman, you know, Batman just falls out of the window to the ground, I guess.
But just to make sure we don't miss all the great, we should run, like, really fast.
As he's got it. But he had enough time to grab his little backpack, right?
Right. So, here's some more, you know, phonically correctness. Here we go.
As we flip the page, go ahead. All right, go right ahead.
I had this whole plan to set up a meet cute on the rooftop. What?
Right.
Because I know you jumping with rope animal heroes just like love rooftops. And that would have been great, right? You, him, moonlight, air conditioner, exhaust.
Meow.
Weird.
What is all that weird stuff on her lips there? Like, what is that?
Oh, at first I thought it was glitter,
Like,
but now that I'm
I don't
looking
know.
at it more...
Is it herpes because she was in that
She was
seedy
in
motel?
that seedy motel.
She was rubbing her lips all over that gross...
Now, if you notice in the artwork, there's only, I think, 2 places where she looks happy. Look at how happy she looks in the air.
Oh, man, you're right.
Now, have you ever
Well, I
seen
don't
a
know.
cat? Have you ever seen a cat like jump? They don't look happy in the air. They look petrified.
And his hand's a little too close to her booty.
I mean, if he's trying to set her up with Batman,
like he's getting a little too friendly there.
Well.
Oh man. So
Meow.
they had a little too much you know, interaction when he was, you know, measuring her for this outfit.
That inseam.
So, and then we go. I just can't get past those creepy lips, man. I'm sorry.
Just swipe the page.
So he's like, exactly. But now I'm thinking maybe we don't need that. Maybe we just do the meat. Oh, hold on. I gotta read this
Wait,
again.
what?
I gotta read this
Dirty.
again. He's like, exactly. Now I'm thinking maybe we don't need that. Maybe we just do the meet cute now at the mansion or wherever. Not just because of the whole Batman killing us situation, but a little bit of that. Meow.
Okay, so there is a part of me though that sometimes when he talks, like just sometimes, it kind of is funny. Like sometimes some of the dumb stuff that he says, I'm like, you're dumb.
I think that's
Not
where
just
they're trying to
because
get
of the whole Batman killing us situation, but a little bit that. Like he's dumb.
Yeah.
He's dumb.
He's like and we see her creepy lips again. And she's like meow, and then he's like, yeah, you get it,
right?
Like I guess he can speak
cat. Meow.
So we flip the page and we're back at the manor, I guess, and maybe this is a different I don't know, place, because it almost doesn't really look like the manor. So it says we see some word bubbles here. We don't know exactly who's speaking until we get to the next panel. We see it says, "You look happy, Bruce, and you shouldn't be. Don't you know that what's happening out there? The world is madness." And then I guess it was Thomas Wayne, and then Bruce says, "You're home. Mother's here. Alfred's here. This is right."
What the heck?
And Thomas is still going, "And the world." And then I guess he interrupts his father and he says, "And the world is madness. Yes, fine." And he's like, "But still, yes, I'm happy, Father. Very."
Oh my gosh.
And there's a crash. And and Booster Gold again crashes right into their door. But this almost doesn't look like it's the manor. This almost looks like it's a like a winter home or something like that, or like a getaway cabin or something, you know.
Okay.
So how does he know that if this is a different if this is their cabin somewhere in the woods? Mm-hmm. How does he know where they are? If that's the case, that's the one thing that I thought every time I see this. So they barge into the house here, and he's like, "Hey, everybody, guess what's coming?" And then Thomas says, "What?" And then he says, and Booster's like, "Meet cute."
Right?
And she says, "Meow." And she's got a sinister look. And, Alfred's like, "Secure." And he's like, I guess he couldn't get security out.
Okay.
So, and Catwoman just slices his throat. And Booster Gold says, "Wait, what?" And we flip the page. And we see, hold on, I'm sorry, I flipped too many pages here. Then we see, Bruce says, "Alfred." And Thomas Wayne's like, "Selina, I closed the orphanage. I did it. I did the work that put you away. I paid for your cell. Take me. Let my son go, please." And she says, she's licking off the blood off her fingers. Oh my gosh, so creepy, right? And she says, "Meow," and she starts to go for Thomas Wayne here, and then she just starts scratching him apart, and you don't really see what part she's going. I guess she assumed that she's just. Did she go for his throat just like she did Alfred?
Right.
So you don't see, it's kind of off panel here, and you see Bruce Wayne say, "Father," and she's about to say meow again. Are you kidding me? She's about to say meow. Mm-hmm. And somebody says, "Selina," so Batman's like, "Selina Kyle, die." So Batman followed him.
Yeah. So
in the last issue, I had a problem with this because, remember that part that I was showing you where Booster Gold got away from Batman, and after Skeets cut the rope and he fell, and he's like, "We should go find Batman." So I was sitting here and I talked about it in my when I reviewed the last issue, and I was talking about wait, where's Batman? I thought Batman was like the greatest detective. Why didn't he go just follow Booster? Right. But here he did it. He went and followed Booster. He followed the clues. He followed where he went, and so weird. And then I don't know. I just thought that was kind of odd. But then he, shoots. You hear a bang, and then he shoots Selina Kyle right through the stomach here, and he says, "Booster Gold, die!" And he throws like a flashbang, and you see Bruce fall to the floor. "Wait, Fater," and then and then he points the gun at Selina Kyle. And he's like, "Enough!" And she says, and she's about to say meow again. Are you kidding me? I didn't see that part. She says meow. And then she finally says it as she's like, I guess she takes her nails, her on fleek nails, right? And she slices off Batman's fingers. And she says meow. This is another thing that bothered me here. Catwoman has a chance to slice off his fingers with her fingernails. That's how close you have to. I don't know. That was one thing. I was like, Batman would never let that happen,
Right.
You know. So, and she says meow again for the third time in the last 2 seconds, and she starts to go after Batman. You see blood all over the place. She screams. So we see, Martha Wayne come in, and she screams, "Thomas, no, please!" And oh my gosh, I really can't read this. She says meow. She says meow one more time, and she's going after Batman. Bruce picks up the gun, screams to his mother, "Get out!" As his mother's screaming for Thomas again because she sees him on the floor bleeding. Batman says, "Selina Kyle, die again," and I guess shoots his gun. And Martha Wayne gets in the way of the gun and gets shot. Bruce Wayne picks up the gun, points it at Batman, screams "Mother," and shoots Batman right in the face. And then we flip the page here, and this is the very last page here, and there's a very loud scream from Bruce as he screams "no," because this is kind of reminiscent to the very of the instance when Bruce Wayne's mother and father die in the alley there, and this is the kind of the same thing we got here.
Right.
But we got Martha Wayne, Thomas Wayne, Selina Kyle, and Booster Gold all laid out, and Batman all laid out. We got Selina Kyle, Thomas, Martha, and Batman. We're assuming that they're all dead, right? Because they all have been shot, and it says to be continued. But let's read this. Let's read this here. He says, So Booster Gold is still conscious because he just got hit with a flashbang, right?
Right.
And he says, "Did I do it? I bet I did it. I'm a hero. I always do it. I have to do it. I save the world."
Right?
Are you kidding me? Right? Like,
it's annoying.
Right. This is what we get in this entire issue. We talked about it, and we talked about how horrible all of this dialogue is and how frustrating it was to us. So I don't know. What would you give this book if you were going to rate it from a let's say in between 1 and 10?
Dude, a negative or a 0.5 because
0.5.
It was
wow.
It was, no, I couldn't rate this. Like, I know that you said the artwork is great and whatever, but just as a person who's never experienced it before, having this be my first experience, I like
Tony S. Daniel. He's the artist on this. I like his art.
Yeah, I have no interest on ever reading another comic in my life because of this story. Like, the writing of it, you know what I mean? I'm just like...
I'm sorry that I ruined you with this Batman issue.
Right?
But you know what? I've always said this. Once I started reviewing these books, this is not my Batman. This is not the Batman that I've fallen in. I don't want to say fall in love because that sounds creepy.
Well,
but no, this is not my Batman that I've grown to love. Right? That I've grown to like and read. But I do like the artwork. I do like what the look of this, and I like the idea of that this story could have been, but I could not get past the writing. So myself, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. It's not quite a 5 because if the artwork just can't solely carry this book, like if I were just to look at this book and not read it, I don't think I could have given it anything above a 5, just with the artwork. But reading the you know what? No, actually, I'm gonna take that back. If I were to just look at the artwork, I'd probably give it a 6 or a 7 myself. But because of the dialogue, it dropped it down that many. I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. That's my take on this book. Again, I'm sorry that I ruined you forever with comic books with this. Let's say Tom King ruined you. Let's say that you'll never want to read another Tom King book. How about that?
Meow.
So, all right, guys, this is gonna be the end of this review here. This is I'm gonna call this segment "My Wife Hates I don't know, should I call it My Wife Hates Tom King or My Wife? Because, or should I just say comic books? Let's call it My Wife Hates Comic Books, guys. And she's been ruined forever by Tom King's writing. So I'm sorry. So that's going to be our book, our Batman book, Batman number 45. Or, I'm sorry. Look at Booster Gold's.
He's ruined
He's
him
ruined
too.
me.
You see? I'm not alone.
This is Batman 46. What am I thinking? All right, guys, that's it. All right. All right, our next book is going to be Nightwing number 44 here. And this one was actually kind of weird because, you know, we get a Dick Grayson who does not like technology at all, pretty much. And he's talking about how he'd prefer the old school ways. But you know what? I thought he was in his 20s, you know, and a lot of the 20-somethings that I know that I work with at work, they are all involved with technology. So this is one thing that I just didn't understand. Even if he was in his early 30s like me, I'm still kind of technological savvy. And, you know, I'm not one of these people that are like, you know, I wish there was no cell phones, no nothing, you know. I really think this was kind of weird that they went in this direction. But, you know, for the most part, the artwork was actually pretty cool. The writing was actually all right. But the whole idea of Nightwing not liking any kind of, you know, technology or he'd prefer the old ways of being a detective or what have you, whatever. This was kind of weird. And this was a very odd, you know, idea of who Nightwing was. This is not really the Nightwing that I know. I don't know where they're going to take this, and if they're going to push this whole idea that he's not into, you know, all the gadgets and gadgets that Batman is into. So, but we open up the page here, and he's walking down the street, and he's got his Nightwing outfit underneath his suit, kind of like Superman does. And we'll kind of get back to that here in a little bit. So, you know, he's talking about how, you know, banks and robbers no longer wear ski masks and crazy carry shotguns. They hack accounts, and they, you know, how do you fight? How do you date? How do you even talk to anyone anymore? As he's passing people by on their phones, and he's in the subway, and you know he gets on, and he yells back to one of the guys, "Hey man, you coming?" And the guy just goes, I guess his face is in his you know, cell phone here. And you know, that is one thing that does bother me nowadays, okay, I can understand that part of it, that, you know, this day and age, we have too many people that are stuck, they got their noses stuck in their phones and their devices and their screens. You know, I understand that, and I go around town sometimes and I see that, you know, we got even little young babies and little young infants and toddlers and things. The first thing people do to calm their babies down is to give them a device, put a screen in their hand, and it quiets them down. Right now, I kicked my son out of here so that I could record, and the first thing I did was put a device in his hand, you know? So I can understand that aspect of it. So he gets on the train, and we look back, and he's looking back at this guy outside the window, and this guy's phone is kind of beeping, and it's got this weird skull popped up, and somebody had hacked his phone, it looks like, and it blows up the phone, and it has a little small incendiary, and it blew up, you know, this kid. I'm sure he's dead now. Then we see we got the train driver here, or the conductor. And he's looking at his phone, too, and the same thing happens to him. And an explosion in front of the train happens as well. But this is a part right here. This was kind of weird. He's like, oh, I thought I heard something. You know, Nightwing's like, I thought I heard something there for a minute. You know, everybody's on, you know, high alert. He says, I heard something that set my every nerve on high alert. You know, if he was set on high alert, then why didn't he just jump up and start going and look and see what's going on? He was looking right out the window. And as this device kind of this hack device, this hack turned up on this device, and this guy blew up right in front of his face. But he said, "Oh, I didn't see what that was." So that was weird. And then the second, you know, boom happens, and he's like, "I can't ignore that explosion." So I guess he goes into Nightwing mode, and I guess as these people, as the lights turn off in the train car, he starts to change into Nightwing. And he's like, everybody's like, what's happening? All their phones are starting to be hacked, and they see the same skull pop up. And I guess he finally figures out what's going on here. And he's like, he starts to pull off all his clothes, and he's got his Nightwing outfit underneath. And he's like, might be the loss of the phone booth for a quick costume change. I'm forced to wear the same tearaway pants male strippers do. This was kind of weird that, And he's like, everything's going to be okay. Trust me, I'm a professional. And he's, in full Nightwing garb, and he's got his batons out, and he uses his batons. And I did think this page here was kind of cool, that he used his baton, and he kind of like bounced it off of, off all the different angles here, and he knocks all the phones out of everybody's hands, and he gathers them up, and I guess he throws them off the train. That was pretty cool. And this was another weird part here. We see him, he tells everybody to get behind him and grab onto him, and he uses his baton as a grappling hook. But this was kind of weird, because you got the page here where everybody's grabbing onto him, and he's just swinging around. And he says, this is gonna be fun. And he says, that's what's wrong with Batman. Fun is not in his vocabulary. And he says that he, changed up his batons with circus physics in mind. I don't know what circus physics. I don't know. Do you go to college and major in circus physics? I don't know. So then later on, we see him laid out on his couch in his room. He's got there's really nothing in his room that is technological savvy. He's got a landline. He's got a record player over there, and he's talking with Batgirl here, or Barbara Gordon here. She's not Batgirl in this. That looks like she's at her computer. I don't know if she's in her wheelchair still here, and she's Oracle at this moment. So. And they're talking about how he likes the old days. There's something about the dial tone that makes him feel grounded here. Now, I thought that was a little weird, and she's over here at this computer, this crazy mega computer, and she's just typing away, trying to figure out what's going on and what had happened with these devices and why they were hacked and how they were hacked and what was going on, right? And they're just kind of talking back and forth. No, I'm not going to get into that. I want to get through this book here. So you see him the next day. He is in a junkyard, and he's got tires on a bar, and he's training here. And some guy shows up, and he's like, "Hey, thank you, you made it. If you're Willem Cloak, I'm your guy." He says, after the guy asks him, "Am I in the right place?" And he says, "Hey, Mr. Grayson, you come highly recommended as a personal trainer, but I'll admit this isn't what I was expecting." He said, "I thought this would be a good spot, given that you specifically asked for your privacy." And this guy, has a cybernetic eye and a cybernetic arm or hand, and I thought it was kind of weird, because it only made sense that somebody like this would show up and train with Dick Grayson, because he was so against all this technology, right? So, he kind of suspects this guy. He kind of suspects this guy to kind of, have an ulterior motive, and I guess it kind of feels that way a little bit, and we kind of figure out what's going on there. We need to figure out what's going on there. So later on, and I thought this was kind of weird, it says Grayson's Hood later. I guess this is in his neighborhood. So he's in a deli, and he's talking to the clerk there, and he's like, "Yo, what's going on? How's it going? This and that." And this guy's got this little device on his arm, and he's like, "What is that? Is it a new watch?" I didn't know you were the kind of guy that would have a smartwatch. And this guy's, "It's not a watch, it's a controller. Check this out. It's my shop's a little like Bloodhaven. Yeah, too dirty, too old, too broken. But check this out." And he presses a button, and I guess, a hologram pops up and it changes the way everything looks in his deli. Everything's nicer, all the brick, the mortar, everything looks really nice. And he says, the floor is wood, shelving, granite counters. How about that? Even the bananas don't have brown spots. So, and he's like, and you hear Dick Grayson's like, oh, it's some kind of holographic augmented reality. And then this guy says that they call it Phantasm. And, everyone's getting one in Bloodhaven. And, Dick Grayson asks, is it like some urban renewal project, like gentrification, like virtual gentrification? So you see, then he's kind of, obviously he's kind of upset and weirded out by this because this is anti-technology Dick Grayson here. And you hear some sirens go by, and he's distracted, and I'm sure this is just an excuse for him to get out of there so he can go follow those police cars. And he, leaves. He gets out of there, and he starts swinging away. He's in an alley, and he's taking off, and, so then we see him show up in a crime scene, and, the detective there, so like, okay, you get a few minutes here, so just go ahead and get out of here as quick as possible. And we notice that this guy has one of those devices on his hand too, and he's looking through the evidence. And this was one of those moments where it didn't it kind of got me. It was a little weird, the way it reads. He's like, the detective, Savota's like, anyway, boo-hoo, Bloodhaven's better off without him, because they find out that this guy is I guess he's a mobster, and I guess he's a part of the Falcone gang here. And anyway, he's like, anyway, boo-hoo, Bloodhaven. She says, anyway, boo-hoo, Bloodhaven's better off without him. The caller said Frankie had a knife, and Frankie had a knife. That means whoever called this in knew what was happening inside the apartment, despite the curtains being shut. He says, "Do me a favor, and all I want." And the detectives, "All I want is favors. All you want is favors. You standing here and talking." The detective says, "All you want is favors. You standing here and talking to me is a freaking favor. Your 2 minutes are up, officially up." And he says, "I'm leaving, but first, can I borrow this?" But this is one of those things, and he steals something off the table, right? But it was just weird because he jumps, like the way it reads, the way it looks, he jumps up and grabs the stuff, and as he's leaving, but she's talking to him and saying these things before he even grabs the device or whatever it is. But the way it read to me and the way it looked as if he grabbed it as before she even started saying these things, not as she said these things. So, I don't know, that was kind of weird. Maybe that's just one of my critiques here for myself. Then we see him, he's at home, and he's trying to, check out, see what's going on with this device. He has no idea what it is. He finds that it's one of those little devices that everybody's been having on their hands, on their arms, so he puts it on, it recognizes face, and, it's that augmented reality thing, and it happens to scan his brain and figure out what he wants most, I guess, and how supposedly what he'd prefer. And it's a luxury home, and there's Alfred there, and it says so the Phantasm unit must scan my neural network as my surroundings and tap into my nervous system. This thing is insane. I've got to show it to Babs. But this is the one thing, if this thing, tapped into his brain and tapped to his nervous system, then they know who Nightwing is, right? They know who Batman is, because they know they showed him Alfred, and Alfred was there, and that's, so he has to know this thing has to know who they all are. Then he, there's kind of this some kind of ghost-like figure, kind of lurking over his shoulder, and there's invisible monsters, phantom threats, digital demons, I guess. He says murder, malware, cybernetics, virtual reality systems. He says, I'm going to need more than 5 senses to figure this out. And, this he freaks out for a little bit because this device, gets up and crawls on his skin kind of like a spider and cuts him open and digs right into his skin. And we last see his eyes start to glow, and that's it. It says next invisible monsters. And so in this issue, it was actually okay. I did like the artwork a whole lot. I did like the idea of this whole, technology taking over people and, kind of crawling inside their skin and turning them into some kind of virtual monster or something. But I did not like the whole idea that how we got there, that, we had to hear Dick Grayson did not like, that whole explanation of how he didn't like technology, and he had to go throughout his entire day, hating on technology, and that's what he did throughout the whole entire day or a few days or whatever it is. So, and he had to explain to people, I like the dial tone and it makes me feel grounded, and that's what I used to do. I just pick up the phone and just hear the dial. I don't know. That's weird. Whatever. But I guess that's what Dick Grayson does in his 20s, right? He sits at home and listens to the landline dial tone. Whatever. So that's going to be the book. For me, because of the story was kind of a little weird, but the artwork was awesome. And I did say earlier, sometimes the artwork can carry a book if you just turn your brain off and not read it. I don't know if I'm going to, keep that going here. Because the writing was okay, but the idea of this book was just very odd to me. I'd rather see Dick Grayson use the technology that he kind of grew up seeing. So I don't know. I'm gonna give it 7. That's going to be my score for this book. I am pretty excited to see where they're going to go with this story and how this is going to affect his life in the future and going forward with this. So let's just see what this is going. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to the rest of our books here. We're going to do, May 9th books here. This was our books for May 2nd. Sorry for me putting them out a little bit later, but I really wanted to wait a little bit because I did want to do that last book, Batman number 46, with my wife, and that was actually pretty cool. I did enjoy recording that one with her. So let's go ahead and move on to the next round of books, and we'll get this out for you guys pretty soon. All right, on to our next round of books here after we list some awesome D-Mode songs right here. All right, we've got Detective 980, Justice League No Justice number 1, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, and we've got Flash number 46. So let's go ahead and stay tuned for these awesome books, and let's enjoy, guys. All right, let's crack open Detective Comics 980. We open up the book with Harvey and Detective Montoya at the GCPD Central Precinct here. And, she's kind of going over some files and paperwork, and Harvey's eating over her, and he's spell check master, I guess, because he explains to her that Clayface only has doesn't have a space in it, I guess, whatever. And she says, the anything that touches Monster Town gets routed through Argus, DEO, and DHS. You want to do this? You want to file this paperwork? And he's like, yeah, no, you got that. And she gets a phone call from Kate Kane here, and Kate's kind of, I guess it's a warning, letting her know, hey, time's running out. They're there, run, and she gets cut off. As at the same time, simultaneously, we see the OMAC army breaking into the GCPD. Everybody pulls out their guns and starts blasting away at them, and it doesn't really work, right? Because they're the OMAC army. And any kinetic energy that they absorb kind of, makes them stronger, I guess. And you see, we got Batman here, Batman of Tomorrow, Tim Drake, And he's talking about how I love your determination. You face so much in this city. I'm gonna just take you guys out, and I need more people on my army. And you guys are I'm gonna transform you guys into my army. So he just starts shooting people to take them over, and he confronts Detective Montoya. And he's like, Detective Montoya, you have no idea how much trouble you make me when you become commissioner. She's like, commissioner? She's like, yeah, fire. I'm going to, I'm going to fight till the very last moment, kind of a thing. Right before he, kills her and takes her over into his OMAC army, we see that Batwoman comes in right through the window and crashes and kicks him right in the face. And, she's like, don't lay a finger on her. And, she starts to fight the OMAC army. He says, what advantage do you think confronting me gives you, Batwoman? And she says, it's more about the satisfaction of seeing you lose, because if you and Ulysses Armstrong want your future, they're going to have to kill me. So here's my first thing here. In the last couple of shows that I when I was reviewing Detective Comics leading up to this book, my question was, do they even know that Ulysses is behind this? I know that they wanted to sit back and blame Tim, that he was being controlled by, or he kind of flipped somehow and became this Tim Drake of tomorrow, and he wanted that future to kind of play out. So, but they nowhere in these books, and there was nothing showing that they kind of sat back and started, throwing things out there, but not once did they throw out that this was Ulysses and Tim Drake. But here, all of a sudden, they're like, oh, we kind of get it, that, him and Ulysses have teamed up. All of a sudden, they just kind of popped into their head, and they were like, that it's probably Ulysses now. And this is my question. Why? I was like asking everybody. I even emailed to the guys at the Weird Science DC Comics podcast, and I was telling them, why hasn't anybody stated that they think that this could be Ulysses? But here in this book, all of a sudden, they do believe that it's Ulysses and Tim Drake. So this is kind of weird here. I wonder if there's something missing, and they did say that in their podcast. They were wondering if something was missing leading up to this, that there was maybe some kind of book that kind of got dropped or something got cut from one of these books. I'm not sure, but there seems like there's something missing here to me. And why did they have that, that thought? Why did Batwoman think that they were in cahoots together out of nowhere completely? She just kind of popped in her head. Oh, I know, all of a sudden. So, okay, now we flip over, and now we're in the Belfry 2.0, and we see Ulysses. And guess what? Ulysses changed his look all over again. Well, 2 books back, we seen that he shaved his head and he had a crew cut. And the next book, he had some weird faux hawk, and then now this one, he's got a faux hawk and a couple of tattoos on his head, And this is all supposed to be within the I guess a few days. I don't know. It's definitely not supposed to be within a few years at all, or whatever. But this guy's got tattoos, and he grew, and this is not a little bit of hair, it looks like 2 or 3 inches of hair on his head. So that's just a little odd that I noticed. So now the OMAC army is targeting Batwoman. They got her on the run, and Bat Tim has said, use lethal force if you need to, and she's dipping out of there. And she's like, I got the blue meanies on my hot tail, and they're very excited to kill me. Tell me your part of the plan is going smoother, and you are inside the tower. Now we flip over. We see that we've got Batman, Orphan, and the Spoiler, and they are in the tower, and they are making their way up. And Batman explains, Spoiler's got some drones, and her drones are hiding us from, Bat Tim's, technology, and they're kind of cloaking us so that we don't get sought out. So now we see this, right? And then he's like, he explains that to them. And, so all of a sudden, because like, oh, okay, we're good now. And now Spoiler takes this time to just like rag on Batman. And she's like, Batman's like, how are the drones holding up? She says, we're not visible to anything using the base code, which is to say every inch of this tower. And she says, this is why it was so stupid of me to ever think that I should have been part of your so-called Bat family. Like, she's like, okay, we're good now. We're cloaked by these drones. So now I'm going to take the time to confront you and tell you how stupid this was for me to be involved with you. And this is just weird. And I think this was just a weird moment for her to bring something up like that. She says, you automatically assume that this isn't going to work just because I built it. And then Orphan says, I believe you. And she, spoiler, explains to her, that's why I like you way more than Mr. Broods a lot over here, Cass. So there's definitely a breakdown here in the Bat family or whatever. So and Jacob kind of chimes in here, and he's like, I guess Batman's like, Jacob came to Batman. I have the full schematics of the tower now. We're just waiting on contact from Batwing and Azrael to see if we can get the backup Batwing suits online and fighting at your side. We could use our own Robo army at the moment. And Batman says, please, I guess he's still talking to Bruce here. He says, please, Bruce, tell me this is going to work. And he says, it'll work. It has to. All right, I'll keep telling myself that. So, and then spoilers like, okay, there's a problem, Batman. There's too much information static ahead. My drones won't be able to take us any further. The second we get in there, we're going to pop up on the radar. And he's like, well, I guess we're just going to have to move fast, right? So we see that they're running through this hallway. I guess through it looks like these are a bunch of supercomputers. And he says, well, each of these boxes is processing hundreds of yottabytes of data. This place could power the entire internet if it spanned the solar system. And she said, yeah, really big. So I thought that was a little odd. She's this super technological person, and she's like, yeah, it's pretty big. Anyway, now I guess, and this is another thing. Now they know that Ulysses is up there in the tower because they know that Tim Drake, the brother eye Tim Drake, is fighting Batwoman, and he's hot on her tail, right? So now they see that, and here on the screens, you see that Ulysses has been watching them for quite some time here, and he's just sitting there chilling, and he's like, what the heck are you? Where did you guys come from? And Batman's like, we need an access point. We don't have much time. And Ulysses screams out to Tim, "Hey Tim, your deadbeat dad just showed up to ruin the party. Want to show him what kind of welcome wagon we can give him?" And Tim scream. Tim is we flip over. We see Tim back with Now we flip over. We see Tim hot on Batwoman's tail, and he says, "Resistance is futile, Batwoman." Now he screams out, "Resistance is futile, Batwoman," and Batwoman kind of uses this time to kind of make fun of him. She says, there has to be enough of the real Tim in there to know how lame that line is. And Bat Tim says, enough to find it funny. Embrace the tropes, but you need to get it through your thick skull that I am Tim and I want this. And she says, the Tim I knew tried to kick me out of the family for killing one of the dangerous unhinged. She says, the Tim that I knew tried to get me kicked out of the family for killing one of the most dangerous unhinged villains. Don't pretend you are anything like that. And he says that Tim hadn't seen the future. He hadn't seen what you did to destroy everything the Bat stands for. They never understood how different you are. And I can measure the difference in mathematical equations. And so he's just kind of giving her all this crazy computer rhetoric, right? He says they should never have trusted you. She says, is that so? And Jacob just screams at her, what the heck are you doing? Get out of there, keep running. because she turns around to face him here. And I guess he believes that she has no chance in fighting him. So he says, you should have listened to your father while you had the chance. And that's when we see that that they get that Jacob's transmission to everything that's going on is cut off, and they continue fighting Batwoman and Tim Drake. And he's like, the OMAC nano shell coating my body absorbs every hit that you throw at me and transfers the kinetic energy back at you. You still think you still think that you're the hero and I'm the villain. I'm going to show you your fate here, Kate. So he says, this is what happens, and he kind of zaps her little head there with some electricity coming out of his hands there, out of his gloves. And then we flip over. Now we're back into the Belfry 2.0. And you see Spoiler, Batman, and Orphan. They're talking amongst each other. And Spoiler says there's something else, and Orphan says there's a problem. And she says no, I don't think so. Anyway, the coding from the future of an alternate timeline, it leaps and bounds from what I'm familiar with, but it's still Tim's work. I can already see his quirks line by line, and I know how he structures his file systems. If I do this right, I might be able to turn off the connection between Tim and Brother Eye. And Brother Eye, kind of sends an alert, and he says unlikely. And Batman tells Orphan, keep Spoiler safe at all costs. And Batman screams out Brother Eye, and then Brother Eye turns and speaks to him, I guess. He says, you were inadequate. You were an inadequate father. You refused to utilize me to the extent of what I could become. Drake gave me the control eye. This reads so weird because they use the EYE and it kind of throws me off. He says, Drake gave me the control I needed. Now I do the same for him. Together we will fix what you have broken. We flip the page, and now we see two shadowy figures coming in, and it is none other than Azrael and Batwing, and they are Omacified. That's what I'm going to call it. And they say, you cannot face me, Batman. I have taken the ace up your sleeve, and now I will use it to eliminate you. And I guess Azrael and Batwing are this ace, and and his Bat family. So we flip the page, and Brother Eye speaks to Spoiler now, and he says, Spoiler, this will not work. You cannot hope to be their salvation. And then Orphan says, don't let him distract. I know I won't let it get in my head. Now Brother Eye says, you are unwanted, the unwanted least I'm sorry. It says, you are unwanted, least regarded, cast-offs from the symbol of the bat. And I guess you see in the background, Orphan is just like kicking stuff, I guess. At the same time that Spoiler is trying to upload some stuff, or I don't know what she's doing there. She's typing away at some computer stuff. She says, yeah, well, tell me something I don't know. And Brother Eye says, you know very little. You do not even realize what has taken from you. What has been taken from... He said, now Omac says, you know very little. You do not even realize what has been taken from you. What this timeline has stolen from your life. And she says, stolen? ? And Brother Eye shows her two holographic images of both Orphan and herself. And he says, you are but a pale shadow of what you were meant to become. Your loss here is inevitable. And what he shows them here is both of them as Batgirls. And you get a really cool idea of what they will both look like with the bat symbol on their chest and how they would look. Orphan looks pretty cool. She's still got this full mask on with. It almost reminds me of the mask that from Batman Beyond. And then the Spoiler, she looks just like Batgirl in the purple and the yellow. She still kind of it's still kind of reminiscent of her Spoiler outfit, which is kind of cool. And she says, "Oh my!" And she wondering what's going on here. She sees that she's pretty surprised. And then we flip over. We're back with Bat Tim and Batwoman here, and he says, "This is going to hurt. I promise you that." And she says, "No, what?" And then she says, "I'm in the manor. How is this possible?" And she says, "Calling soldiers. Oh no!" And they're in the Wayne Manor, and she sees herself, and it kind of has a different look to her. She's unmasked at this point. She's got a different haircut and all this stuff, and she's pointing to the grandfather clock, and she sees what's going on. And I guess Ulysses and Bat Tim take her to that memory where he showed Tim Drake when she kind of killed Batman in that moment. And he says, "Do you see, Kate? You're smart enough to put together what's happening. This is what I needed you to understand. This is what happens. If you are allowed to continue down this path, this is why you need to die." And you get a little bit of a picture here what Ulysses is doing. He's kind of seen this happen, and he's sitting there in a chair laughing and eating popcorn. That was just a little over the top. He said, "This is better than I ever imagined." He's just kicking back, and he's just loving this. And now we're back with Batman, and it says, "You are a hypocrite, Batman. You wanted to save the world. You built me to save it, but you refused to use me until it was too late. Levity only reveals weakness, Batman. I can read your heartbeat. I know how frightened you are." And he says, "Can't see why I would think of reactivating. Can't see why I would think activating you was a bad idea." And he says, "Your confidence does not extend to the creation of an older, more experienced version of yourself. Over and over you have watched the world careen towards madness and destruction and stop short of what was necessary. You stand in the way of your own potential. I will relieve you of that position." And they are kind of a little overpowering Batman in that moment here. So we're back with Spoiler and Orphan takes off her mask, and she says, "It's us. We're Batgirls." ? And Spoiler says, "Tim said that we were from a different future, that he was from a different future, and this must be a different timeline and what we become." And Brother Eye says, "Yes, you were accepted. You were a part of their family, part of their world and their lives. Cassandra Cain was no orphan." And it looks like Cassandra was being trained by Barbara Gordon and by Orphan. And it looks like Orphan was being trained by Barbara Gordon. I guess this is her Oracle persona. And Orphan looks up at the symbol, and she says, "The symbol, they let me." And, Brother Eye interrupts her, and he says, "Stephanie Brown, your journey with the Bat only began as Spoiler. And it had other destinations along the way." And we see that, Stephanie Brown was a Robin at one point in another timeline here. And I think that was actually kind of cool that she was actually, close enough to Batman that he trusted her enough to be a Robin. And then this Batgirl, I guess, as well. And this makes me wonder if the Brother Eyes shows are two different timelines here, one where she's Robin and one where she's Batgirl, or if it's the same one and the destination that he was talking about was she started off as Spoiler, then she became a Robin, and then she became a Batgirl. So this is actually kind of cool here, and I like this how they give us this insight. I like the look of the Robin and her. I like the look of her Robin, and it's actually kind of cool. And then Brother Eye says, "Do you understand why I do not find you threatening? I have seen your best selves, and you are not your best selves. You are second rate, and you will never measure up." And Stephanie's doing one of those things where she's crying, and it turns into laughter. And Brother Eye says, "I don't understand. Why do you laugh?" And Stephanie says, "I'm doing a heck of a lot more than laughing," as she's hugging Orphan, and she's tapping away at her wrist, and I guess she's uploading some kind of virus to Brother Eye here, because then Brother Eye says, "Error, error," and Ulysses is looking on and said, "What the heck did you do?" And she says, "You wanted to hurt me by showing me another version of myself pulled off. Are you kidding me? Everything I've gone through in the last year, but everything that I've gone through in the last year, but to know that somewhere out there I was good enough to be a Robin, to be a Batgirl. The only thing that you told me and you just showed me, no matter what timeline I'm in, I'm freaking amazing. And you just gave me the access to a history, a timeline that I didn't know existed. I'm going to use that to beat your butt into the ground. And that's what we see, and that's the very end of the story here. And it says the next issue is going to be Rise of the Batman. And I think that this was actually kind of a cool part here. I like this cliffhanger because I want to know what's going to go on with all the different characters that we've seen that are controlled by Brother Eye. We got, obviously we got Tim Drake, Azrael, and Batwing that are controlled by Brother Eye. We got all those OMAC armies. We got some of the people from the precinct, that have been turned into the OMAC army. So I want to know if they are all going to be shut down and they're all going to be changed back into themselves. And then is this going to be over with, or is this going to be a part where they have contingency plans and Ulysses is going to have some kind of back door to where everything stays, it kind of shuts down for a moment, but then it comes right back on. So this is going to be kind of cool to see what happens in the next issue. I did not hate this issue. I there was a couple different things where, obviously Ulysses came back with a third different haircut, and now he's got tattoos here, or who knows how many things he's gone through. You know what I mean? So, and anyway, and then there was a couple other things where, they didn't know that Ulysses was a part of this, and now all of a sudden they just kind of thought it into existence that he is part of this. I did like the colors. I did like the artwork. It was pretty good. For the most part, the writing was okay. I'm going to give this one a 7.5 to an 8. I did like it. I did, it did keep me intrigued, and, there was a lot of action from the very beginning. So for the most part, it was actually okay. I probably wouldn't recommend it to my wife, because if those of you who are listening, my wife hates comics, and she has been ruined by Tom King. And I'm sure that if she read this book, she'd probably be ruined by this one as well. She may like it a little bit more than the Batman books, but yeah, all in all, this one is, I would just read it, form your own opinion, and let's go ahead and move on to our next book here. All right, our next one is Justice League No Justice #1, written by Scott Snyder, James Tynion, Joshua Williamson, and artwork by Francis Manapul. The artwork is actually really good. The colors by Hi-Fi. I want to give that guy a high five, because this artwork is awesome. At first glance, the colors are always what intrigue me and pull me in to these books here when Hi-Fi's on these books. And yeah, and guess what? Yeah, I am cheesy. I did say high five. I'm sure he gets that all the time, whatever. But anyway, this book is actually, probably my favorite for the week. And it was actually really good. I enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed it a lot. So we open up the book with all the Green Lanterns. Well, not all of them, but a good chunk of them here, and they are all converging onto one point. And we've got Hal Jordan here, and he's talking to John Stewart. And, they kind of go back and forth and talk about, hey, what are we here for? What's going on? We get an idea that everybody is blaming the Justice League and Hal Jordan for breaking the source wall here, because they are using their rings to form a construct to keep whatever's behind this wall at bay. So they talk to him, and they're letting him know, you kind of did this. He's like, what's on the other side? And he says, think of us, our universe is like a leaking raft on a toxic sea. And he's like, we didn't mean to do this. We had to do whatever we could to stop the dark multiverse. Comparatively, this is just a crack in the wall. It can't be that bad. And, so we got tons of people here that are just like, you guys kind of messed up here. He said, you and your friends on the Justice League broke the source, the universe, the source wall. And, the old rule book just went up in smoke. So they are pretty much blaming them there. And you see that all these Green Lanterns, they are forming a construct to keep what's at bay here. And then we move on to the next page, and we see an insight to the what's going on with a handful of these teams. We got the Titans, the Teen Titans, and the Suicide Squad, and we're also introduced to Amanda Waller and a couple of her assistance. So we see Suicide Squad here, and they're talking to Waller, and they can't get a hold of her. Waller's doing her own thing. She says, I need a confirmation. It's him, right? It's him, ma'am, they say. And then we're under attack, and there are other sightings. It's a full-scale assault, ma'am. Amanda Waller now says he can't be everywhere. Find out which ship has the real him. So whoever it is that she's trying to track down, there's multiple, I'm going to say doppelgangers, I guess. I'm not sure. So then we see the Teen Titans, and Starfire is saying that they're overrun. There's too many of them, and then we flip back to Amanda Waller's assistant, and she says, we've triangulated, but we have to ask, ma'am. You're sure you want to do this? And then we go back to the Teen Titans this time, and we see Robin and Kid Flash here. And Robin says, who cares how many there are? Keep pushing, Starfire. And, Kid Flash here says, we can't, Robin. We need to fall back before. And then something happens here. They get caught into some tentacles, and now we're with the Justice League here, and it says we're officially at war. And then we got Brainiac here. It looks like that's who Amanda Waller was trying to find, and I think that there's multiple Brainiacs, I guess, fighting all these different teams is what I'm forming from the panels before this page here. So that's kind of what the idea I got. Later on, we'll find out exactly what's going on and why that is, and why he's got multiple teams fighting a mirror of himself, I guess. So we got the Justice League here, and Brainiac says, you think so much of yourselves, but Brainiac sees you for what you are. And he says, and hear me when I say that you are not prepared for what you've unleashed. So he is here, and he's telling them, you guys aren't prepared for what you guys unleashed when you broke the source wall. And we've got all the Justice League leaguers here, and they are wrapped up in his tentacles, and they are all subdued for the most part, it looks like. And then we got Superman. He says, I won't let you take this world, Brainiac. And then he says again, do you realize how many would-be invaders have tried to take Metropolis? How many protocols we have for evacuation at the slightest hint of danger? These buildings surrounding us, they're empty. You realize what that means? And he says, I don't have to hold back. So we've seen in the past that they've they've kind of held back a little bit because they don't want to hurt anybody that is innocent. So they have, things in place to where people are evacuated from these cities and from the buildings and things of that nature. Now we see Batman, and he says, Flash, fast, free the rest of them. Fast is the only gear I've got, I guess he says. So, and Wonder Woman doesn't like that joke, and she says, really, Barry? And Superman is now back with Brainiac, and he's fighting him. He says, look up, Brainiac. My friends are already slipping out of your grasp. You really thought you had a chance? And Brainiac says, you delude yourself, Kal-El. Now we flip the page, and he kind of gives them a little bit of a glimpse into the future, or what would happen here if, I guess, whatever comes into place, or if he took over and he subdues all of the Suicide Squad, the Titans, the Teen Titans, because they're all laid out on the floor, and the Justice League looks like they are the only ones that are available to do anything about this, and then they get subdued by him too, and that's kind of what he's trying to show them. You guys basically don't know what you're getting yourselves into. You guys are, out of your leaguers here. So anyway, then we see that we've got Beast Boy, Harley Quinn, Starfire, and Zatanna, and they notice who they're waking up with, and they kind of, want to fight each other here, and they kind of, we got Starfire kind of settling everybody down. And then they kind of settle down, and they stop, and they look and actually see what's going on. And they're all in different outfits, and they're different colors. And they're like, Starfire's like, were the rest of you wearing these outfits when you lost consciousness? And this is some next level creepy, Beast Boy says. And then we kind of move on, and they're like, but where are the rest of the Teen Titans? The first things first, we need to get out of here. of this room. If anyone else is up here, we'll find them. So they're trying to figure out what's going on and where this is. So we see Harley Quinn, and she opens up one of the panels of the ship, and she kind of gets zapped because she tries to open up a door, or I don't know what she's trying to figure out. She's trying to figure out how to get out of there, but she gets zapped. And then they start to hear, some voices, and they, start to move towards the voices. I guess a door opens up finally, and they start towards the voices. Now we see, and she says they're hopefully they're doing better than us. And we see Robin and Dr. Fate kind of face to face, and Robin's pretty pissed off looking. He looks like, and he says, "Go on, do it. Say calm down one more time, 'cause I'll tell you your fate, Doc." And it has you casting your hoodoo in cold, dead space. So button it. Help me find Brainiac now. And Martian Manhunter stops and says, "Robin, please stop antagonizing Dr. Fate. He is one of the most powerful sorcerers in the multiverse. We will find Brainiac, but first we must concern ourselves with why we have been taken and who else is here." So we got a handful of more people here. And, they're all wondering what's going on here, right? Robin, obviously, gets pretty upset, and he starts walking away, and he runs right into Brainiac. And as Brainiac's walking in, he's walking in with the Justice League. And Batman explains to Robin to calm down, tells him, chill out, you know what I mean? And Brainiac's like, yeah, you're among allies. And Starfire's like, allies, Superman, what is he talking about? And Superman's like, I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. Starfire now says, how can you be certain he means no harm? And at this moment, Brainiac picks up the lasso of truth. He now says, I believe all of you know what the Amazon's lasso is capable of. Wonder Woman now says, he's telling the truth, Corey. And now Brainiac explains to them, I did not have time to ask kindly. It seemed best to illustrate your weaknesses to prove my course of action. Now, we have Robin speaking to Batman, and he says, Father, you can't believe him. This must be some kind of trick. Now Batman says, Brainiac, you need to explain to them what you told us. Tell them what is coming. Brainiac now says, very well. So now Brainiac explains to them actually the reason why they are all there, and the entire, backstory of why we have these teams forming together, and why Brainiac needs them to help him out. So now he says, the oldest beings in the universe share a myth older than civilization, older than language. A myth of four brothers, impossibly powerful cosmic gods, each embodying one of the fundamental energies of sentient life. They were called the Omega Titans. Entropy, wisdom, wonder, and mystery. Each believed their core energy to be the dominant power of intelligent life. To prove themselves right, they planted seeds of cosmic energy in the world. At the end of the universe, the story said that they would return to the civilizations that grew over eons, weigh each energy, and figure out which one was supreme. And the winning brother would reabsorb that world. The dying universe is a garden to be eaten by its overseers. So I guess this is what is going to happen here. We got these four brothers who made a bet between each other, and they planted seeds in different universes here, right? And they at the end of the universe, I guess they would come back and figure out which ones grew and which ones were dominant, and the winning brother would absorb that universe and, I guess, reign supreme, whatever. This is kind of that's kind of cool idea. I understand that. And now we hear, everybody talking here, and we see Martian Manhunter, and he says, Harley, please, it's a children's story. We had a version of it on Mars, but it was the Four Mothers. And, Brainiac now says, it's no children's story. The brothers arrived on my home planet of Kolu. This time yesterday, one is about to consume my world. The source wall breaking set the beings in motion, bringing them back from the furthest reaches of the universe. John Jones, they are ready to begin the systematic destruction of all sentient worlds until nothing is left. He now says, it is possible to stop all of this. You have always rallied around an idea of justice, the symbol for which is the scale we need to restore balance. The 4 energies, thus, I have redistributed you into 4 teams, each embodying the energy of an Omega Titan. In these new configurations, success may be likely, but it is possible. And Beast Boy kind of says, I'm on Batman's team. So, and then Batman says the nodes on our new costume, that's what marks our teams. But you have a team of 5, a team of 4, another of 3. And he says the numbers are uneven. If the key is balance, you must have more heroes for the teams. And now we hear somebody off to the side and says, I don't know if I'd say heroes, Batman. And now we see that we have a handful of other guys coming in here. We got Starro, Sinestro, Lex Luthor, so it kind of a couple other guys. So we see a handful of villains walking, right? Basically, anyway. So now we move on and we see Amanda Waller, and she has an X-ray of some sort of Brainiac's brain and what he is made up of, I guess. And somebody says, Director Waller, Brainiac has left the solar system. The missing heroes and villains, they appear to be with him. And I guess this is her now, I guess. She says, that doesn't matter for now. Is the Apocalyptin satellite relay working? I hope those modifications to the Queen communication system are holding. Tell me, do we still have contact? They said, yes, our computers are still mapping his brain system. As we speak, we shall be ready to data mine at any moment. Now, Amanda Waller says, I've spent years playing catch-up, dark multiverses, alien gods, time travel. It's time the United States government had a full understanding of what threats are out there. Now we flip the page, and we see that she's got a handful of people connected to some chairs and connected, and their brains are I guess connected to some wires on the floor. Now she says, make sure Task Force 11 or Task Force XI is primed and ready to go. I didn't kidnap the most powerful psychics in the world for fun, people. It's time to hack Brainiac. So I guess she's going to use all these different psychics in the world to hack into Brainiac's mind here. Now we're back on Brainiac's ship here, and we've got Martian Manhunter and Lex Luthor speaking here. And it says, did you read his mind? From the parts I could safely probe, Brainiac is still telling the truth. Your mind, however, is shielded from me, Luthor. Now we have Luthor speaking, and he says, it must be overwhelming. Coming back to so much chaos after a long time gone. Now Martian Manhunter says, when I left, you were still a wanted villain. Now I hear you've been playing at hero. So they kind of get, have a kind of go back and forth. And, like Luthor says, if you try to read my mind again, I will bury you alive. So this is kind of the relationship between these heroes and villains that we've got, because we got Sinestro and Starfire, and they want to start fighting here and all these different things here. So this is the kind of what's going to be happening here. And I do like the idea of putting these teams together, and because, we're going to see if they can get along very well, or if we're going to continue to see these kind of fighting going on here. And kind of now we see Batman, and he tells Robin, I don't care about these different teams, you stay close to me. So, and then Robin says, you have to see that this plan is a mistake. So we kind of see the dynamic between all these people, and they're kind of fighting back and forth, and Brainiac kind of gets upset and tells them all enough. And now they are arriving at Kolu here, and you see that there is a Omega Titan, and it's about to be it's about to consume Kolu, because he's reaching his hand down towards everything, and everybody looks like they're evacuating in different ships here. And we see that Superman is saying some stuff here, and Brainiac's like, yeah, they are no gods, Kal-El, they are destroyers here. So, this is what we're gonna see here. So anyway, he says, Kolu is home to the smartest race of sentient life in the universe, my race. Therefore, it is wisdom who has come to consume my world. The other energies are weak in this place. But if they are reignited, we may have a chance of saving my home world. This is why I have arranged you in your most ideal configurations to best embody each of the 4 energies. Your only chance of survival is following every word I say to the letter. Any deviation, and you won't just doom my world, you'll doom your own. He says, upon my visit to Earth to collect you, I also made sure that the seed on Earth would attract the Omega Titans. If you fail to stop them here, there will be no hope for your people. Earth will be next. Amanda Waller here. And somebody says, Brainiac is fighting back. She says, then push harder. I want every piece of information in that thing's head. Now we hear some pushback from the Justice League here. And they're like, what did you do? Explain yourself, Brainiac. And we go back and forth between Brainiac and Amanda Waller. And somebody now speaks to her and says, the strain on the psychics, it's too much. And she says, I don't care. Keep pushing. And now we see Brainiac here. He says, listen carefully. You have one chance at this. Only one, and to win. You must follow my plan exactly. Memorize every command I'm about to give you. Know it, obey it, or else the universe is doomed. Now we see Amanda Waller, and she says, begin the extraction. Brainiac now says, you first must find the 4 cosmic trees. There is one for each of the energies, and you must... And he says, something's wrong, because he grabs his head here, and he makes crazy noise. Looks like he's got a little headache here. Anyway, he says, they're in my mind. And Superman grabs him, and he says, Brainiac, what's wrong? He says, can't think, Kal-El. And then we are now flipping back to Amanda Waller, and says, there's something that says, error connection overload here. And now we see... face to face, we've got Brainiac and Superman, and Brainiac's head explodes. And this is kind of cool because now we see this really cool, the title here of the book, and it says "No Justice" in really big block letters, and it separates the 2 or 3 panels that we got here. Now we hear from Beast Boy. He says, "Guys, what are we gonna do?" And now we see we're so fragged. So now we've got Brainiac, and his head just blew up, and he was just about to tell them exactly how they were gonna handle this situation and what's gonna go on. But now they don't know, because now I don't know if he's dead or not, but he's out of commission. And it says now next week, Crisis on 2 Worlds. So we see, and we're gonna hopefully see how the Justice League and how all these teams are going to figure out how to fight these Titans and figure out where these trees are on the planet Kolu here. So next week we'll figure that out. So I'm going to give this book, I'm going to give it an 8. It's actually pretty good. I did like the story. It kind of, it kept me, I liked it. It kept me reading. I didn't want to put it down when I did read it. The artwork was really good. The writing was great. But there was a couple places where I did see that, Superman's face was a little off. There was a couple other characters, their faces were a little off and things like that. But there was actually some really great places where the artwork was just on point. And I do like the idea of these villains and superheroes coming together, and it feels like there's going to be a lot of, infighting kind of a thing going on. So I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do with number 2 next week. So let's go ahead and open up another book. It looks like we're going to have Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns next. All right, we've got Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps number 44 here. And this one is actually kind of cool because we've got, Hal Jordan and one of the Dark Stars. They are face to face, and you can actually see Hal Jordan's face in the mask of the Dark Star. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing here. So we open up to Space Sector 2814, Earth, Central City, Iron Heights Penitentiary. And we see Goldface here. Somebody says, Goldface. And he says, who? And he says, you had the chance to stay clean. A chance you didn't deserve. Instead, you returned to your criminal ways. You wasted your second chance. There won't be a third. For the crime of murder, your penalty is death. And this person takes off their helmet, And it says, now hang on. He says, hang on, murder. No one said anything about murder. I knocked over a couple of jewelry stores. I don't know who you are, but come on, Mac. You know that what I'm talking about. Everybody has bills. And this person in this suit says, no, it has. It was a long time ago. You may have forgotten, but I haven't. You are a murderer. And this person takes off their helmet. He says, oh my gosh, not you, not one of you. And he says, then you do remember, as he powers up his gauntlet here and shoots it towards Goldface. And Goldface just gets burnt up to a crisp. And now all you see here is some bones in his skeleton. And this person says, final justice has been served, Goldface. This is only the beginning. The Dark Stars are the new law. So now we see later, after the cell block has been cleared for an investigation, we see Green Lantern, Hal Jordan here show up. And he says, ring scan DNA, identify the victim. Now the ring says, victim identified, Keith Kenyon, also known as Goldface. He says, what killed him? Residual energy is consistent with a burst from a Dark Star mantle. Now we see the Flash come on in here, right? And he says, something I can help you with, Hal? He says, hey, Barry, figured you'd run by. Now this was the thing. If this has been cleared for investigation, why is the Flash coming in and not Barry Allen, as, because isn't he a part of the, anyway, he's the CSI, right? Why shouldn't he be in there in his plain dress clothes? Anyway, I thought that was a little weird. So now they kind of talk back and forth. He said, it's a shame. Kenyon had the heart to go straight. Now the Flash sits here and says, it's a shame. Kenyon had the heart to go straight. He just didn't. The bones are baked like clay in a kiln. The heat intensity of the murder weapon must have been off the charts. Not even Heatwave gets this kind of result. My city, my case, but you're welcome to partner up. We don't get to do that enough. And Green Lantern says, no, we won't be partnering up this time. The murderer fled the planet. My ring picked up the teleportation signature on my way in. He says, you know who did this? And Green Lantern says, an ex-Green Lantern named Tomar 2. He's the son of Tomar Ray, my mentor in the Corps. So now we go to a flashback here, and it says, years ago, during the crisis, Goldface and some other villains were helping me on a mission. He says, a real end-of-the-universe scenario. You remember, Barry? He says, now we got Tomar Ray, and he says, I order you to cease this battle. And Green Lantern says, yeah, things went bad. Goldface attacked Tomar Ray, and now we got Goldface saying, you are all going to die, Green Lanterns, all of you. And we see a Green Lantern standing over Tomar Ray's body. He says, Goldface broke Tomar Ray's neck. My mentor died that day. He said I could have stopped it, and they kind of go back and forth here with some dialogue and stuff like that. Now we see it says, we'll need friends in low places to figure what's going out here. So now we're back. Now we're on Space Sector 1974, the planet Heat. And we see that Guy Gardner here is being shunned by somebody, saying you've been banned from these premises, and I guess it's a bar. So we see him sit down. He says, "Beer me, bartender." And this guy says, "Forget it. Last time you were in here, you and your big friend fought the whole bar. Cost me a fortune in repairs." He says, "Beer me," and he says, "Put it on my tab." Now we see everybody freaking out and say, "He's here," and he says, "Oh, on the house, even better." And now we see that Arquillo has showed up, and he says, "You take a large risk meeting me here, Guy Gardner." And he says, "You're late, Arquillo." And he says, "I did not plan to meet you until our usual, how do you say it, monthly beer o'clock." And so this is kind of funny. So anyway, he says, "Yeah, this is serious business. Couldn't wait." And this is one of those things, for the most part, this book was actually pretty good, but the proportions were off in this moment here. As Guy Gardner reaches down for a beer behind the bar, his arm is like super long, and his his body's all big and his head's kind of small here in this moment. That's one thing that I noticed, and I was like, oh, that kind of looks like it was a little off here. And Arquillo kind of looks looks. I don't know. Maybe they made it look like that for a reason with Arkilo, because his proportions are a little off too. But I guess because he's closer to us, his arm could be bigger for that reason. But anyway, so now he asks him, how serious? He says, serious enough that it means we get to team up again. And this is a funny part here, because he hands him a beer and Arkilo just kind of eats it. And he just, swallows it. And he says, I'm listening. He says, now Guy Gardner says, I don't want to ask, I don't want to ask this, not with everything that that went down between the greens and the yellows, but I'm asking for help. There's a new crew on the scene, the Dark Stars. If we don't get our acts together, they just might take us all down. The Green Lantern Corps is throwing a big party. Now we are on, transluminal space, a web subspace pathways that enable travel faster than the speed of light. I guess we needed an exact, an explanation of what the transluminal space is. This book has that kind of feel that, they need to explain for people just jumping on in this story. That's what I kind of feel throughout this entire, this story. So, anyway, we move on and we see the space. There's a space cabbie here, and he shows up and he's like, "That's the point. You don't know much about operating outside the law, do you, Raynor? That's my kind of cop." And anyway, they get inside, and he explains to him, I've got a new engine here, and it's a mother box engine, and it's the only one in 100 sectors. So I guess this is, explaining up to us that, because he had to go. I have to get someplace hard to reach. There's a man who owes me a favor. Guy said you'd help me, but I don't see how. And this is when he explains to him that he's got a mother box engine and he can just get it anywhere. So that, I guess, this just explained. He showed up and he's got this engine, and out of nowhere he's like, "Yeah, I could take you anywhere," kind of thing. I don't know. I guess they were kind of. That feels like it was a little forced here. And now we see people that are surrounding the space cabbie, and they're like, by order of Orion, Prince of the New Gods, surrender or be boarded. He says, "Hey kid, are you sure the guy you're looking for owes you a favor?" Because he says, because this bunch doesn't look like the sort who like to pay their debts. Now we move on, and now we see, it looks like Jon Stewart here, and he is, with Zod here. He's Space Sector 2811, the planet Jakul, and the Royal Hall of the House of Zod. And we've got somebody that says, dissipate this Green Lantern husband, don't even allow him to speak. And Zod says, Ursa, please allow me to handle the diplomacy. We had an agreement, Jon Stewart. He says, as we recompense for the Green Lantern Corps unlawful acts of aggression against the House of Zod, they are forbidden from trespassing on my world. Already you have gone back on your word. What kind of leader shows such disregard for military honor? And Jon Stewart says, I'm the kind of leader who knows when he has to join forces against a common enemy, no matter how much I dislike the idea, no matter how much I dislike you, Zod. And we've got, I guess this is Zod now, coming towards Jon Stewart, and he says, You've miscalculated, Green Lantern. You're alone. One meager ring against a family of Kryptonians gifted with the power of this world's yellow sun. And he now says, ring execute package codename fist bump. Guide me in. And the ring says, initiating fist bump. And it looks like he's got some kind of brass knuckles made out of a construct. It says tracking speed and trajectory. And now he kind of socks him straight in the knuckles, I guess, in Zod's hand, and he breaks his hand. Zod now kind of cringes and he says, my hand, it's broken. How? He says, we'll break your limbs, Green Lantern, after we remove them. As Zod's minions, converge on Jon Stewart. He says, give me your best shot, Ursa, because you'll get mine. And now we have Zod say, back away from him, all of you. His weapon is no mere hard light construct fabricated by a paltry ring. It's kryptonite. He says, I got it from a confiscated sample in the evidence vault on Mogo. Are you listening now, General? So So he has a kryptonite brass knuckles, and he just socked him up with this. So that part of it is actually pretty cool, and I did like that because it looked like it was a construct, and they kind of duped me there. So now we're back on our Earth in Metropolis and Stryker's Island Penitentiary here. And we've got the person, I guess the director of the prison here, says, "I wasn't expecting a visit from a Green Lantern today. I'm making the rounds of the Supermax prisons. You have an Omega-level threat incarcerated here. John Stewart wants to be sure he's secured." The director now says to Green Lantern here, which is Hal Jordan it looks like, and they say, you can tell Mr. Stewart that Hector Hammond possesses no danger. Star Labs guarantees it. So it says we're keeping him unconscious with an array of sedatives. So I guess he's been unconscious for quite some time here, and he hasn't woken up for quite a while. The doctor now says his neural readings are unlike anything I've ever encountered, and I've studied such formidable criminals, telepaths as Primson, Simon, and Dr. Psycho. So, he says, I just need a few minutes to file a report, and I'll be gone. Let me know if I could be any assistance. So now we see Hal Jordan. He's starting to break all the wires that are connected. He's trying to recruit him as to join the team here as well. And now we see somebody that shoots Hal Jordan in the back, and he says, "Bad news, Greenhorn. Name's Atomic Skull. I'm the boss turnkey around here. Inmate Hammond is going nowhere, and neither are you." And this guy's kind of cool looking. He's got a pretty cool suit on, and he's got a skull, and it looks like it could be flaming. I don't know. That's kind of cool. It says, "You're under arrest." And now we see it says next Dark Pursuits, and hopefully we're going to see a little bit more action in the next book here. I did like this one, but it was kind of a setup, and it was kind of like one of those books where they explain to you a lot of things that for people who are just kind of jumping on, and I guess this could be a jumping off point for some. For the most part, this book was okay, but it wasn't the best one, so I'm going to give it a 6. That's going to be my review for this one. I wish that they would have given me a little bit better of an insight of what's going on here, what their plan is, and a little bit more action. But I guess we'll kind of move forward in the next few books here. So next book we're going to review is Flash number 46. This book was another one that was just kind of setting things up, and it was kind of like a filler issue to me. It wasn't that great of an issue. I found myself kind of just flipping through the pages really fast and just kind of like wanting to get through it, but I was like, I got to read this one to at least review it. So I just found myself kind of getting bored a little bit. But hopefully in the next book, because at the end of this one it says that the Flash War begins on the next book. So hopefully the next one is going to be really good, and this Flash War series is going to be better than this one here. So let's go ahead and jump into this book. All right, I do want to say with this book, I wish that there was a little bit more here. I wasn't too, like I said, I was a little bored with it. So let's go ahead and check it out, though. It says we open up with the book and it says "In Times Forgotten," and we hear a ramble here, and we says, "Tragedy always has been a part of me. For years I wanted to understand why my father killed my mother and those girls. I dedicated my life to finding a way to stop anyone else from being like him. But instead life found me. A career as a hotshot criminal profiler, my wife Ashley, her father became my mentor. I had a family again. And for a while I believed I had escaped tragedy. But in a second, it was all taken from me. As I was so sure the clown wouldn't have a gun, I was wrong. I realized that any mistake could lead to a second you can never take back. My life was over. The name Hunter Zolomon was shunned." So that kind of gives you a little bit of an insight of what's going on here. We got Hunter Zolomon, sitting in it looks like he's in a prison, and he's in a wheelchair, and he's kind of recounting the time that him and the Flash, Wally West Flash, we're kind of friends, and he was like, but he rejected me, and I became Zoom, and I wanted to convince him that, going back in time was the way to make things right, to take back the second when it all went bad, he said, but he rejected me. And, they kind of fought back and forth, and they were, greatest foes, I guess. He says, I failed the man who once called me friend. Now he calls me a villain. And I'm powerless, slowed down, but I have a clear mind again, and I can reflect. And then you hear, something going on outside of his cell, tons of crashes and bangs, and now you hear a kaboom. And his cell door opens, he gets pushed back, and he's on the floor, and he can't get up. And somebody says, you told me you had an idea, Zolomon, and now we see that it's the Reverse Flash. You can make us better. Is the student ready to become the teacher? Eobard Thawne was obsessed with Barry Allen, the original Flash. For years, as the Reverse Flash, he tormented Barry to make him suffer. We both had been disappointed by the Flash in the past. And now it says, Road to Flash War. So it looks like we got, Reverse Flash and Zoom. They're teaming up, I guess. I don't know here what's going on. We will find out here in the next few pages, but we've got them coming out. Reverse Flash is breaking him out of prison, and this is where I kind of got bored with the story here, because we flip the page a little bit over and we see that, we see Iris West and Barry Allen here, and they're talking about, she says, Barry, why is this happening just to Wally? Why not me? We both got our memories back at the same time. He says, how are you doing with the memories, Iris? It's like trying to remember a movie I saw once a long time ago, but not all of it. I get bits and pieces, images of people I can't name. And he says, that's how I felt since Wally came back too. And he says, I guess he kind of feels something going on. He says, no. And then now she says, Wally. And I guess, I don't know, that was kind of weird. Does he have telepathic powers now? But anyway, now you see him running into, I guess, into an area where we have, we've got Cyborg and his father. They're running tests on Wally West here. He says, I'm done. Get me out of this thing. And he's like, you got to chill. Let my dad's tech do its thing, bro. kind of thing. And, anyway, they're doing that. He kind of vibrates himself out of the situation. And he's like, no more tests. So Flash. And then this is kind of a weird thing here. The artwork in this book is kind of off and on sometimes. And this is one of those points where I look at the Flash and I'm just like, dude, that's so horrible, man. And I look at him and it's like, wow. Anyway, so he gets out of it, and then, Iris just kind of shows up out of nowhere, and they kind of just talk to each other, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, they go back and forth about, consoling each other, I guess. And the one cool thing about this book here is that every time that, things are happening to Wally here, and different timelines and things are kind of flashing in and out of he's seen these things flashing in and out of his existence. So now he looks over at Cyborg, and he sees Cyborg in a different type of suit here. It looks like it's like kind of the old school suit back in the day. Now he's like made out of gold. I'm not sure exactly what he's seeing here, and he's like, oh man, I hate this. Well, this is crazy stuff's going on, and he kind of falls. He's like, this is just too much. And I guess out of nowhere there's a burst and something happens, and then all of a sudden he's got his suit back on, and that was kind of odd. Like, how did he get back into his suit? It didn't look like he was like almost half naked, and now he's into his suit. And then now anyway, we flip the page, and it looks like we're now in Gotham in the Batcave, and Alfred says, it's a pleasure, and the Flash, I take it this is Barry Allen, the Flash, and he says, where is he, Alfred? I've tried the JL communicator, but it won't work, and it says that he's with Booster Gold, but it's not connecting. I need to speak to both of them. He says, I'm sorry, but you have to wait, Mr. Allen. Master Wayne is out, but business with Miss Kyle, private business. So anyway, I guess he's out and about with Miss Kyle. And anyway, so he's like, if you'd like to leave a message, and then he just gets real mad and breaks the Bat computer, punches it right in the middle, and glass and shards just fly everywhere. And this is kind of this moment where I'm just like, all right. And here's another part where the artwork's kind of off here. You see Alfred, and he almost looks like an old little Asian guy here. I thought this was kind of weird. And he's super calm after he just punches a bat computer, dude. I'd be pretty upset. Anyway, he says, Mr. Allen, I understand that after the poison ivy incident, you might desire some level of payback on Master Wayne, but I hardly think that this is, anyway. And he gets interrupted by Barry Allen. He says, how does he do it, Alfred? And he's like, I'm sorry? Like, what are you talking about? Whenever I think of the danger that Wally and Kid Flash are in, I wish I could just turn off the part of my brain. And he says, but Bruce? How does Bruce let someone he cares for run on the rooftops of a place like Gotham, living the kind of life that we do? And I guess he's pacing back and forth. He says, for Nightwing, Robin, Batgirl, Signal, all of them. How does he not worry? How does he not feel anything? And, Alfred says, Mr. Allen, please stop pacing. And he's like, and you could just see him kind of in a blur going back and forth. He says, of course Master Bruce feels. He worries. When you're a parent, you're always going to worry. Barry Allen now says, then what do I do, Alfred? I can't just do nothing. And so we get this idea, I guess he just going back and forth with Alfred and just talking about this. This is one of those things that just kind of got to me. I'm just, even now reading, I'm just like, oh my gosh, just move on. So now we're with Hunter Zolomon and Eobard Thawne in the future here. And I got to read this to you guys because this is kind of one of those moments where it was just like another frustrating moment. Let me read this. It says, for years, I wanted to return the past, take back my mistakes. Instead, I found myself in the future, protected from the timeline changes. The 25th century, to be exact. Let me read that again. He says, instead, I found myself in the future, protected from the timeline changes. The 25th century, to be exact, in the home of Eobard Thawne. Like, really, this was that frustrating moment. I was like, oh my gosh, really? Did I have to know that? I could see that you guys are in the future. You got buildings that look futuristic here, and you got anyway. Now they're saying, I'm done with this, Hunter. How much longer must we hide like cowards? Just let me run back in time and make the changes you want to your life. I'm tired of waiting for all your pieces to fall into place. And Hunter Zolomon says, this is bigger than me, than us. We've been caught in the same infinite cycles against the two men who call themselves the Flash. I know I can make us both better, but only by making them better. And oh my gosh, we got the same thing going on here, guys. They've been doing this for quite some time now. And their whole idea is, we got to make you better, because if I make you better, it makes me better. We make everybody better. We're all better, kind of thing. I'm just like, this is another moment that just frustrated me. I was like, get through this book, Anyway, they're going back and forth and talking about how to do this, how to make this happen. And you see that they're kind of getting upset at each other and says, Barry Allen let me down more times than I can count, but I still believe in the one thing he told me. Every second is a gift. And Hunter Zolomon gets pissed here, and he says, like, that is a lie. Sometimes a second can be a curse. If we rush into things without being careful, without thinking, we must stick to the plan. And Eobard Thawne says, your plan. And now Hunter Zolomon is like, the only plan that matters. Then maybe it's time I started making my own plans again. You can stay here and continue to have faith in your precious heroes, Hunter. And he's like, but I'm returning to the 21st century to get what's owed to me now. And this is another piece here that kind of, here after a little while, it kind of gets to me that I didn't understand. And we'll read it in a little bit, and I'll point it out to you guys. So now we see that we've got Wally, and he's going to many different places where he says, after Barry Allen died, Wally told me that whenever he'd get frustrated or needed to think, he would run. He would revisit his past failures and victories. Sometimes he'd go where he grew up, remember the life he had before he met Barry Allen, and then return where his life was changed forever. But there was one location he'd always visit, the Flash Museum. So that's what we see here in these panels. He's visiting those different places there. The moment that he became the Flash, the moment that, so now he's in the Flash Museum. He'd go after hours when he could be alone, and he'd talk to his hero. Of course, Barry never answered, but he did inspire Wally, helped guide him out of the shadows to his own path as a hero. And now we see Barry Allen showing up here with Wally, and he's like, Wally, I looked all over for you. Are you okay? He's like, yeah, I am. I just needed to clear my head a bit. You know, whenever I felt lost and needed answers, I would come here. And he says, here? Why? And he says, the Flash Museum just made me feel safe. And Barry Allen's like, Wally, there is no Flash Museum. Not yet. Not for a long time. And Wally's like, there was. And now all of a sudden, the Flash Museum is completely gone. And they're in an empty lot. And I guess he's having those flashbacks, or he's having those hallucinations again. He says, you had one. We did. It was amazing. I just want this to be over, Barry. And he's just freaking out here, and he's like completely like going crazy right now. And he's like, you know, Wally, talk to me. After Magenta and Grodd, I thought it was getting better. I thought I finally had my life back on track. I'm not even scared anymore. I'm just angry. I don't need you to fix it, Barry. And then Barry says, need me to listen? I know. It's hard for me to just stand still when the people in my life are hurting. I'm always there to remind people that to not give up hope. But that isn't what you need right now. He says, so tell me, what do you want to do? He says, I just want to run. And then Barry's like, well, I can help you with that. This is such a cheesy thing. And then we see a really cheesy panel of both of them kind of smirking and running here. And so this was that thing. And this next panel here that we see like the Flash Museum, and then it's kind of fading. I thought that was kind of cool, and that idea was actually kind of cool there. But this story was kind of cheesy here, and here's the part that I didn't understand here. We see on screen, and we're back with Hunter Zolomon, and now we see the Reverse Flash, and he's kind of like disintegrating, and he's like dying. But I don't know if that means he's dying in this time, or if Hunter Zolomon is looking into the future or into the past, or what's going on. Because he's like, but this time tragedy found him. Hold on, I gotta go back. So Hunter Zolomon is like, ever since my father, I have searched for someone who could understand tragedy the way that I did. I finally found that in Eobard Thawne. But this time, tragedy found him. I shouldn't have let Eobard go back alone. I should have run alongside him. Now I watch him die again and again and again, all because he wouldn't listen to me. I was so sure I could make Wally and Barry finally live up to our expectations, but I was wrong. And just like before, someone who helped me escape the tragedy of my life was dead. It's time that I embrace the truth. Fawn was right. The Flashes do not deserve my faith. And now he's all of a sudden in his suit, and he punches the screen. And he says, they deserve nothing. If the Flashes refuse to see a road to being a better hero, then I will take them down a road to war. And it says, next, the Flash War begins. This was one of those books that was just like, oh my gosh, frustrating to get to the good stuff. And then when the good stuff was here, it was just so cheesy, because were they just obsessed with seeing Barry Allen punch a screen, and Reverse Flash or Zoom, I guess, punch a screen? Like, man. And then does this mean that Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash, is dead because he's dying in this timeline, or is he looking at a different timeline? Because he said, now I watch him die again and again and again. So I don't understand what that means here. So I guess the next book is going to be the Flash War, and I hope that book is going to be a whole lot better than this one. This one was more of a filler book. It frustrated me in a few different places, and I'm going to give this book, I'm going to give it a 6 on this one, just because some of the artwork wasn't really that good. It kind of frustrated me, the storyline. I did like the idea of the story, but the where they went with this one, I just wish there was a little bit more. It was just a filler. So all right, let's go ahead and move on to comic book pop culture news. All right, guys, let's see what we got here. So I'm recording this one a little late. I'm sorry for that, guys. But you know what? But that means that we're going to get a bunch of cool comic book pop culture news, because I'm going to talk about some stuff that is in the news here as of late. So now I'm looking at right now, we've got a headline here. It says, Tom King has a lot more planned for Booster Gold. Oh no, that means he's going to ruin Booster Gold even more, because I hated his version of Booster Gold. If I would have met his version of Booster Gold, I would have punched him right in the face. So let's see what else we got. Let's move on. I'm looking here, guys, sorry. So Gotham is going to be finishing up here in the next season or so. They are done, and they're gonna see, let's see. It says Gotham pays tribute to The Dark Knight Rises in the season finale trailer. That's kind of cool. And I guess they've got another season, but it's gonna be their last. That's at least those are the rumors that I hear. Let's see what else we got, guys. Just bear with me as I read. So Alfred, Batman's butler, is gonna be getting his own live action series, and it looks like Pennyworth. It's gonna be called. I did read this one, and it's it's not going to be the same gentleman who plays Alfred in the Gotham series, and I guess it's going to kind of go a little bit more into him when he was in the military, and I guess when he enters into a job with Thomas Wayne. So that's going to be cool, and that's going to be kind of like a little origin story there with him. I am intrigued to see that one, and I wonder how that's going to go. We've got a little that says Zack Snyder claims he planned more for to explore the Batman vs Superman Nightmare timeline. So that's actually kind of cool. I haven't read this article, so if you guys want to look this up, I'm looking all this stuff up on comicbookresources.com. So check that title, that headline out if you guys want. I also heard there's a rumor where Ben Affleck still wants to be Batman. So that would be really cool to see him continue the Batman that we know. Some people really don't like him. I kind of liked him. I thought that I really want to see what I want to see with that Batman. I want to explore the Red Hood story, and because we saw that in Batman vs Superman, we had a spray painted Robin suit, and it looked like the Joker had killed him. I want to see if that's Jason Todd, and if they killed Jason Todd, and I want to see him come back as the Red Hood. That would be a really cool movie to see if they integrate that storyline into the Batman movie that we are hopefully going to be seeing here soon, which would be pretty cool. I'm not going to get my hopes up for that one. So Deadpool number 2 is starting pretty soon. We got Solo coming out in the theaters soon as well. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming back for a 6th season. So I'm reading this article, and it says because of Infinity War, it's opened up a whole new playground for the show. So it looks like they're going to integrate the fallout of Infinity War into the season 6 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That would actually be pretty cool to see them kind of integrate that a little bit. I guess from a rumor, I haven't been keeping up with this show, but from a rumor that I've heard, they kind of already kind of talked about that and a little bit in some of the episodes since then, and that was pretty cool. So I did read another one here about Patton Oswalt. He has a theory about the Joker from the Dark Knight. And it's been 10 years since that movie came out. So if you guys want to kind of revisit those movies, this is the perfect time to revisit them. The trilogy was actually pretty good for me. I liked it a lot. But I'm a guy who really likes cheesy movies. I'm glad that I'm not a movie critic, because I would just give everything 2 thumbs up. That's why I like that I am reviewing comic books, because comic books are a little bit different for me and stuff. So anyway, Patton Oswalt kind of has a cool theory about how the Joker, every time that he was being interrogated, he would kind of change his thought process, change kind of just to push people's buttons a little bit. Anybody who interrogated him, he would kind of flip it back on them, and kind of going at their personality and what they were doing just to push them to the next level. And I read this article, and that was actually pretty cool. So check it out on Comic Book Resources, or check it out on Patton Oswalt's Facebook. It's there somewhere, and he's got a really cool theory about the Joker and about Heath Ledger's Joker. So that's cool. Star Trek number 4's director confirmed. I did not see who that is. Let's see if I can go ahead and scroll through this really quick while I'm looking it up with you guys. So I did like these movies. The last one was all right. Yeah, a lot of people don't really like it that much, but I do like it. So the director is S.J. Clarkson. I guess it's a person who was involved with Heroes for a little while there. So they directed Heroes a little bit. So that's kind of cool. I want to look into who this person is and what they've done, and if they're. I'm pretty interested in seeing this. I hope they do a whole lot better than the last one. All right, guys. It looks like Man of Steel 2 is aiming for 2020 release. So that kind of is cool. Let's see. DC is not going to reboot, Jim Lee says. Look into that one a little bit further, guys. All right, this is going to be it for this episode of MCDC Podcast. I want to thank my wife, Elizabeth Galvez, for reviewing some books with me and putting up with me and my shenanigans. So everybody stay tuned for the next episode here pretty soon, and we'll get that one pushed out for you guys pretty soon.